We propose to do this through an emphasis on communication, critical thinking, creativity, self-management, perseverance, and collaboration. Students will be active partners in authentic learning, offering voice and choice and demonstrating competency. Sorry about my voice. Cold, school cold is going around.
All right, thank you. All right, so next is announcements and special acknowledgements. The next school committee meeting will be held on Thursday, December 5th at 7 in the middle high school ensemble room. FEFI's policy working group will be meeting on December 5th, and we'll hear from the other subcommittees later in our meeting. Please also note the following regarding the district schedule. Elementary school students will be dismissed at 11:50 on Wednesday, November 27th. Middle and high school students will be dismissed at 11:20 on Wednesday, November 27th. And all school and district offices will be closed on Thursday, November 28th and Friday, November 29th. For special acknowledgements, I'll start by saying that I had the pleasure of attending the National Honor Society induction ceremony last night. Got to see Charlie up there. So I just wanted to extend a congratulations to all the members. It was a really awesome ceremony. The students go up and say positive things about the new students who are being inducted. It was really impressive to hear, and it's just overall an impressive generation. So good stuff. Anybody else?
Yep, I just want to give a shout out to the girls varsity volleyball team on their undefeated season again this year and their 4th state championship in a row. So they had a fabulous season, and under some new leadership with Brian Reed, they just had a tremendous season, and I was able to see a number of their games this year. So congratulations to the girls varsity volleyball team.
Absolutely. Nobody else?
Winter sports registration closes soon, so if you're in high school, register for your winter sport before Wednesday, I think the cutoff is.
Thank you. All right, public comments. Just going to read our statement on public comments. Public comment is not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between individuals and the school committee. It is an individual's opportunity to express an opinion on issues within the school committee's authority. While the committee and/or administrators will not typically respond during public comment, the chair, as presiding officer of the meeting, may choose to if she deems it expeditious. Further, should the chair believe that an issue falls outside the purview of the school committee, she may request that citizens direct it to the appropriate person or body so that the matter is given proper consideration. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person and a total of 15 minutes overall. Are there any public comments? All right. Moving right along, we have a community presentation, the strategy for district improvement and school improvement plan. And we welcome the administrative team and staff.
All right. Thank you very much. And Tracy, if you want to head up to the computer, we're going to have to, I guess the administrators will stand at that mic as they're presenting? Okay.
And administrators, we were supposed to talk into the flat side, not the top. So I would pass the flat side.
And here comes Brian.
Oh, no.
Is there a problem?
The flat side, not the top, right?
But the other flat side.
The other flat side. I got the flat side, correct? There you go. Oh. The flat side over here, but not the top.
Okay.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Brian.
Go ahead. So each year, the administrators present to the school committee both our strategy for district improvement update and the school improvement plan for each of the 4 school buildings. So this is our 2024-25 presentation to the school committee. The strategy for student success, the framework was developed, I want to say 6-7 years ago now. And it begins with the district vision up at the top. Below that, we have the elementary education program, and then we have the secondary education program guide. Both are documents that were written by the administration and staff, approved by the school committee. We also have the strategy for district improvement, which we developed 7 years ago now, I think. And Tracy will be going into that a little bit in a few minutes here. And then right below that, we have the annual school improvement plans for each of the schools. The school improvement plans are required by state statute. Those are built on essentially a foundation of our finances, professional development, curriculum, instruction and assessment, the safety and security and technology. On the right side, we also have, we show all the different studies that have been done over the years, and they're ever changing. We did a choice study a number of years ago. The facilities study is a little bit more recent. We have the annual audits that are done. Special education, I know that Eric Oxford, our new director, has been looking closely at our special education programming. Then we have the NEASC process and our, it's outdated now, the Return to Learn document. Remember those days? Right. And then on the left side of that is the sort of the cycle about how we go about reviewing that. So every 2 years, we are looking at, actually every year, we review it, but it's a 2-year plan for the school improvement plans, and then we look at the strategy for district improvement every couple of years and make changes to that. The elementary ed and secondary ed program guides are fairly recent. Those, I think, are 2 years old now. And then the district vision that has been in place. And so we review all of those documents on a regular basis, and that helps set the stage for our direction as a district. So I will ask Tracy to begin the conversation this evening in terms of our order of events, if you will, or order of presenters, and talk about the strategy for district improvement itself.
Thank you, Dr. Blake. So I'm Tracy Wagner, Director of Teaching and Learning. Nice to see you. I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about the strategy for district improvement, especially in how you will see it relay into each individual school improvement plan. You can see the order of presentations up there. So after I do a quick overview, each principal, starting with Adam, will come up one by one, give about a 10-minute presentation highlighting specific action steps in their school improvement plan, and I'll share how those are set up. There'll be a little bit of time for Q&A with them, and then we'll move to the next principal, and then more Q&A at the end if you like. So that's how we'll follow through. Okay. So as Dr. Blake shared, the strategy for district improvement is looked at on a rotating cycle. Of course, the mission statement, which is read at the beginning of all the meetings, and then we have the theory of action. So this is the big guiding piece of the whole strategy that you're about to see. So the strategy for district improvement has this in common amongst each of the 4 schools. So you'll hear tonight each of the principals present on the 3 objectives. I know the font might be kind of small, and in the spirit of principals not having to repeat them each time they get up, I'll talk a little bit about them. So the first objective is meeting the needs of all students. IPS will ensure that all students are provided supportive and rigorous educational experiences that meet their social, emotional, and academic needs. So the principals will get up and they'll show us how their school improvement plans, which as you saw in the graphics, stem off from this big strategy from district improvement, match. And you'll even see certain tags for each of the schools. So they might talk about something that meets 1.1 and it matches the priorities. Then you'll hear about Objective 2, which is creating innovative learning environments. IPS will ensure that all students are immersed in an engaging and challenging academic program built on authentic, profound learning experiences driven by the successful habits of mind. Those you'll hear about: creativity, critical thinking, perseverance, and so on. So again, each principal will have a slide about Objective 2 and talk about their specific school improvement plan, action items that meet it. And lastly, Objective 3, building best practices to support diversity, equity, and inclusion. IPS will ensure that all students will be prepared to face the challenges presented by an increasingly complex world that is more diverse than our immediate learning community. So again, each principal will have a slide and has a section of their school improvement plan that shows action steps for 3. So this whole school improvement plan is, of course, available online. Definitely not going to read to you all of the fine print, but really the important thing to know is that you'll see the principals present on an objective. So for objective 1, each school will talk about what matches it for their lens, and that's their school improvement plan. And as Dr. Blake shared, school improvement plans are on a 2-year cycle. So Doyon, the middle school, and the high school are on year 2 of their 2-year cycle. Winthrop is beginning year 1. We've talked some about moving them all into the same cycle. That's something we might discuss at our summer retreat. However, for now, that's where we're at. I will say notably that both of the elementary schools in the strategy for district improvement share the exact same action steps. So these are written in consultation with each other, with myself, with their parent councils, and in consultation with feedback from faculty. And then you'll see what it looks like to each of the individual school environments. And then same for objective 2 and objective 3. So there's 2, and here's 3. So you'll see that format of an overview, the 3 objectives, what it looks like in the school improvement plan. And we are featuring lots of arrows this year. Because many of our schools are on a 2-year plan, they will show you what you saw last year, i.e. what we said we were going to do, helpful arrow that shows what we did. So the principals on the second year are going to talk a lot about how it looks differently this year. Our principal of the high school chose to do something different than the arrow. That was okay, and I will leave that as a little teaser towards the end of the presentation. Well, I don't know. So I'd like to introduce the interim principal of the Paul F. Doyon Memorial School, Mr. Adam Mullen Whitehouse.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Adam Whitehouse Mullen, and I'm the interim principal at the Doyon School. In truth, I couldn't be more proud to present to you this evening. Ms. Digby in our main office, I know that everybody here knows her. She often says, she often says that the goal of the Doyon School is to be one step below Disney. And in my opinion, as much as I love the Winthrop, I do think that we might be the Disney of elementary school. So just a big shout out to all the wonderful people who work really hard to do wonderful things for kiddos in our building. The first slide that I wanted to start off with is inclusive of a mural that's been built in our school. So Ms. Bendizu has been working with students, and as you look at the mural, you'll notice that there is this kind of black line that's running through each of the squares. One of the major areas of focus that we've had this year is the idea of togetherness and care. And as each of the students and staff members in our building had prepared a different subsection of this mural, they were intertwined with this black line. So as of right now, we have 370 squares by students, squares by staff, and again, a lot of it kind of comes together to indicate that togetherness that we are pulling in our community. The first goal is aligned with meeting the needs of all of our students. And if you look here, you can see the frame. We have our action steps from last year on the left side, and then our forward growth on the right side over here. Taking a look at this right side, we have a couple of boxes up at the top that talk about how we're looking to build Tier 1 and Tier 2 supports. What that means is we're looking at our students who maybe indicate that they need a little bit more support than the typical general education programming, and then giving them a little bit more. The other piece is that we as a team are looking at assessment data to make sure that what we're prescribing for our kiddos matches what they need. This year, our next step was to collaborate as grade level teams to review the assessment data, and then also to implement power routines, interventions, and resources to support our students. One of the big steps that we took as a community this year was to adjust our scheduling. There were a number of spots where we could increase efficiencies to increase time on learning for kiddos and increase common planning time for teachers. So we were able to implement a block schedule, allowing for teachers to go from maybe 1 or 2 days of the week where they're able to work with one another to co-plan to 4 to 5 days a week in a number of instances. We were also able to increase the length of our literacy, math, science, social studies blocks as well, so that kiddos had a longer chunk of time available to them to focus on those skills. The next two pieces that we're working on is continued professional development, specifically in responsive classroom. That's our pedagogical approach to teaching and learning, and Wit and Wisdom, our new curriculum. And the last box here speaks to us partnering with our Ipswich community resources to maintain a safe and secure environment. Goal 2 is aligned with creating innovative learning environments for kiddos. We all know that Ipswich is a special place, and we do a lot of work to make sure that what kiddos experience at school truly is above and beyond what you might get anywhere else. So we had 4 kind of focuses here. The first box talks about kaleidoscope data. We had a woman, she was a teacher from Lakes Region, New Hampshire. She came down, she's now a consultant with Responsive Classroom, and she spent a day in our school. She produced an 18-page report, and it told us about all the wonderful things we were doing and some growth areas for our work in and around that Responsive Classroom programming. One of the pieces that she had talked about was, again, going back to the care and togetherness, kind of getting a little bit louder with those work-study practices in our building. So this year, we, along with the Winthrop School, are supporting students by looking at their social-emotional skills and their work-study practices under the umbrella of cooperation, assertion, responsibility, empathy, and self-control. So Doyon parents in the room are probably seeing lots of information coming from me about what cooperation looked like in September and October, what assertion looked like in October and November, and what responsibility would look like November and December. We continue to partner with community resources and organizations. We have a number of different programs, more than I've seen anywhere else, coming in the building, going out of the building, bringing kiddos to different places. So we continue to kind of build those partnerships. And in and among that, we also want to engage students in those project-based, discussion-based learning. Kind of ties back into the cares again there, as kiddos are asserting themselves, being responsible for their learning, being able to dive into a topic of study and allow that to be self-directed. And then the last piece in this chunk kind of speaks to we want our kiddos to have the best possible opportunity, and that means giving our teachers the best possible opportunities to engage in the PD they need to effectively support students. So we continue to lean into lots of professional development around Wit and Wisdom. And again, there's another note in there speaking to those the planning block times that teachers now have more of. So again, rather than having to find time after school, before school, all in different spots, there's consistent blocks throughout the week where teachers can rely on time set aside to focus on this work. And then the last piece to speak to this evening is just around looking at our practices and traditions. Like, we've spent a lot of time as a district exploring traditions that we want to keep and traditions we want to change. One of the big pieces we look to at all of our schools in our district is building mirrors, not windows, right? So we don't want to have students coming into our community and have them feeling as though they're looking into someone else's culture. We rather want students to see themselves reflected in all of our buildings. So part of the work that we're doing with our building team, our DEI team, those groups, is just looking at our school traditions. Are they representative of what it is that students are carrying with them into the building, or are kiddos looking in? And if kiddos are looking in, what can we do to help them see themselves in our walls? Around the CARES work, we have started to implement school meetings every month. So we have a different assembly where kiddos come together and they explore cooperation, assertion, responsibility, empathy, and self-control. We started in September having some meetings where students had to turn and talk, engage to solve different puzzles and talk about what it felt like to cooperate. A couple of weeks ago, we had a program around assertion. So students were looking at a play put on by different staff, and then they would stop as staff were engaging in different scenarios and explain how they could assert themselves to solve a social dilemma. And the next two pieces are just around our language curriculum. We've been working with Winthrop to get kind of the wheels in motion, as our world language teacher is now between two buildings. And the last piece, and again, it's really important given the age range of kiddos in both the elementary schools, is around increasing awareness to families, right? So I think there's a lot of times where families, especially of very young children, don't always know that there are resources available in our building to help, right? So we think about our child find efforts. We think about making sure that the programming we offer is, again, loud. We want people to know we're doing great things at the Doyon School. We're doing great things in our district. And we want families to feel safe. If you have a 1-year-old that you're concerned about, a 2-year-old that you're concerned about, there are people in our building who can help direct you to the right place. And there's also plenty of resources in our community that can help with that as well. The next slide is really just kind of a thank you. We have so many different resources and supports, and we're just so grateful to kind of wrap them all into what it is that we do at school every day. If you have any questions or wonderings, I'm happy to take them. But again, starting at the beginning and wrapping up now, I couldn't be more proud of this building and what it is that's offered for these kiddos every day. Questions?
Thank you. Any
No?
questions? All right.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Adam. Next up, I'd like to introduce Ms. Amy Sullivan, the principal of Winthrop School. Here we go.
We have to adjust this a little. All right. Well, I'm loud, and hopefully you can hear me. So thank you. Hard to follow Mr. Mullen's presentation. I just always like to start off acknowledging everyone that has brought this plan forward and all the work that we are doing at Winthrop to be able to talk about all of these initiatives. So first of all, Nikki Emerson, the assistant principal, who is just the backbone of support every day, and Megan Ganley, who is our program manager, and also a member of our school council. We're very fortunate to have a lot of consistency on our school council. We've had the same representatives for a few years now. So I'd just like to thank Christina Donahue, Kristen Johnson, Amy Lowe, the co-chair, and Kimberly Mavroides for serving as our parent representatives for the past 2 years. And then we also have been very fortunate to have the help of some staff members. Last year, Anthony Falconieri and Tiandra Morris were teacher representatives on our school committee, and on our school council. And this year, we also have Megan Ganley that I mentioned. I know you all know Fab, Lori Khalidi, and Meg Smith, one of our third grade teachers. And for the first time since I've been in Ipswich, we also have a community representative, and her name is Katie Henry. She owns a couple local businesses in town. So all of those members contribute to the presentation. So this year, we are aligned with Doyon with our CARES theme, which is great. This display was made by our students in Mrs. Lee's art class. And if you come to Winthrop, you can see the CARES theme visually across the school through many different displays. But with caring hats and helping hands, we can do anything. And you'll see that right when you come into the lobby. But again, we are still using the CARES acronym from responsive classroom, so cooperation, assertion, responsibility, empathy, and self-control. So goal number 1, meeting the needs of all students. If you could just go back for a moment, thank you. We have just a couple of samples of the pictures here. The first picture is part of our gardening club that was parent-led, where the students did some seeds. And this was the day that they presented them to everyone to come and to grab their own seedlings that were now turned into plants. And then down here in the bottom corner, we have a student at one of our science fairs, which is also a Fry's parent-run event that happens at Winthrop every year. Okay, so some of our action steps we were able to kind of finish last year. And so in some instances, the arrow might have a strong connection to where we are this year. In other instances, we are trying new things to meet the needs of all students. So last year, we were heavily focused on creating an intervention toolkit to help students. You heard Mr. Mullen talk about Tier 1 and Tier 2 supports. And so that was really a year process. Some teachers wrote a grant. We did some work this summer, and we were able to buy materials and resources and create a toolkit. And so what does that mean? Say a student is having difficulty with phonics. Instead of coming now to our support team and talking about the student, which we still do, and say, okay, we'd like you to do a 6 to 8 week phonics intervention, we now are able to pull up for them, and here is the intervention. And so that is sort of the power intervention. Here is the resource that you can do. And so it's been very well thought out. And so now this year we're in the implementation stages of that. So we've had a lot of PD on de-escalation and behavior supports, both through our former CPI training with Whitney Cardew last year, and also through Responsive Classroom. As you know, we were really a 2-year process to bring in the new Wit and Wisdom curriculum. So that is carrying over into our first action step, supporting the implementation of Wit and Wisdom this year. And I think that we have done that in such a great way. We have literacy leads at every grade level. We have professional development. We have coaching through the new literacy coach, Alyssa Brand, which has been wonderful. And we also have a scope and sequence at each grade level that we're working through, and finding that the scope and sequence in this first year has taken just a little bit longer. And then supporting students with disabilities through the new Massachusetts IEP, which has been a lot of training. Ms. Ganley's been doing a great job with that. I absolutely love reading the IEPs when they come in and the students have their own goals. One of the preschool students said, I want to learn more about cars, specifically trains. So that was great, but so sweet. So they start right away at the young level, sort of identifying their own needs. Our supporting students with de-escalation and behavior supports through the PAIN grant, we were able to bring in the LIFTS course, and that's the Leslie Institute for Trauma Sensitivity. We currently have 27 educators across the district at all schools in different roles. Mainly classroom teachers, though, is the lens, participating in the first course, which is just an overview of trauma and its effect on students. In January, we will start the second course, which is providing supports in the and services in the classroom. And so that has been just a great thing to be able to offer to teachers and bring our training to the next level. And then we have also started with our new school adjustment counselor, Teresa Guillaume, the Little Spot emotional regulation curriculum. It kind of delves a little bit deeper into different emotions that you might be used to with perhaps the Inside Out movie franchise, but it has many more components to it. And what we're doing this year is a lot more preventative work, where the school adjustment counselor has gone into all the classrooms at K-3, and she has taught to all of the students components of this curriculum, so that we're bringing that back. And then at grade 4, we're using the Mind Up curriculum. We're in our second year with that. So those are some big initiatives this year, and looking to see what we might want to roll into grade 5 as well. We had 7 educators this summer. We were accepted into the Massachusetts Dyslexia Institute. That was amazing that we were able to be one of the districts that participated in that. And through that, we've developed a dyslexia action plan. We talked a lot last year about the new dyslexia mandate. So this was a way that we were able to sort of roll up our sleeves, develop an action plan that has evidence-based literacy instruction. We had to create our own vision and presentation and where we wanted to focus our work this year. And that was offered through the Crafting Minds Institute in collaboration with the Department of Education. And then this is a direct connection. The last star, we were doing a curriculum review cycle of our science curriculum last year. We sort of have completed that, but we're going forward with a new comprehensive health standards, where last year we were looking at resources and student assessment data. This year we are looking at wellness curriculum, UBD exemplars, and hopefully bringing forward one to pilot, a new wellness curriculum. Okay, so goal 2 is creating innovative learning practices. If you could go back, I like to talk about my pictures. The mural here was a big project last year. This was in collaboration with, again, our teacher, Mrs. Lee, and artist in residence, Yeti Frankel, and we were very fortunate to have parent Ana LaGuardia sort of spearhead the grants for that, as well as Megan Ganley again. And that's in the lobby, and it's sustaining Ipswich outdoors. And so every picture that you see there was a drawing that students made, and then the artist, sort of made it bigger and, to scale. And it's a mosaic, and it's in our lobby, and hopefully it's something that could be moved should, we ever have a new building or something that we would like to bring that to. So again, our action steps for goal 2. Here we have some of our sustainability things that happened last year through our green team, our no idling campaign, and a collection of the solar eclipse glasses. Down below, which I feel is very innovative, was the heart monitors that Mr. Southern and Mr. Falconeri used during PE class. So just to move in, last year we did a lot of looking at different innovative ways to collaborate with our specialist program. Probably the biggest thing last year was our new Drums Alive program that Mr. Falconeri and Miss Fab did PD, and they brought that to all of our students, and it's still up and running this year. Increasing awareness of sustainability practices. I just noted some of them. We've done quite a bit more with the green team, including Harvest of the Month and all different recycling initiatives in the cafeteria. Supporting teachers with the workshop model, and move into the science of reading. And then the last one, investigate ways to have students take more ownership of their learning. So that's where we were last year. This year, the ownership of the learning, we feel, is happening much through the Wit and Wisdom curriculum. There is a Socratic method there. There's more use of rubrics where students can see, what they're supposed to achieve. There's also peer assessments and lots of other opportunities for students to take an active role in their learning. Mr. Mullen mentioned the World Language Program. As you may know, Winthrop had Mandarin for many years, and last fall, unexpectedly, our Mandarin teacher resigned, and it was a very hard position to fill, and so we felt like it was another way to align what we're doing at the elementary schools. And so this year we are sharing Mrs. Martin Garcia, and she is and the students are loving it. She's very high energy, and I think they're really excited to begin learning Spanish at Winthrop this year. We still have many things going on with our environmental awareness, upcycling, again, Harvest of the Month that Ms. Freehand comes in and does a lot with us. We just had a Halloween costume upcycling where students that needed costumes could come and grab them on the front lawn. We have a new composting company this year as well. And then one thing that we're looking at, the last bullet is fairly new. This actually is sort of a combination of many different things. First, our librarian, Allison Vitale, came to me and said, I really want to get things in place that the students are very interested in. And so she was writing her professional goals around encouraging a love of reading with the students and trying to bring in books that are of high interest. And so she's doing that in different ways, like through book recommendations. She's also called it a book tasting, where she'll put things out during library time and the kids will just kind of go and we're not really eating the books, but just a little taste interesting of looking at the books, and she says it really has had an impact on students choosing different genres or things. And they have written a TWIG grant that I believe was just approved for a community event of Comic-Con this March. And that's something that we have heard pre-COVID. There used to be like an author's night or a student showcase night. And so we're working to see like what kind of student-led event can we bring back, and maybe partnering with Comic-Con on that. Okay, and then lastly, goal 3, building best practices to support DEI. Just a couple of pictures here. On the left is a group of Japanese educators that came to visit Ipswich earlier this year in Winthrop. They were particularly interested in our special education practices around inclusion. So it was just lovely to host them. They're from the TOS group. And then this is a picture of some third graders that were invited to Shailin Liu up in Rockport to see a play of Cinderella this year. So our action steps, you know, we still have more of an increase of students in our EL population. So that's something that we've been looking closely at over the years. And this year we really had to think about access to the new literacy program for EL students. Since September, since school started, we have received 5, and I think we're getting ready for another 6th newcomer. We're still drawing mainly from the Afghan and Brazilian population. And sort of how are they going to access this very language-rich program? So at each grade level, our EL teachers are going into one classroom, and we're doing more like a walk-to-read model for our EL students. We call it walls down. So maybe one class hosts all of the EL students, where the EL teacher then kind of comes in and co-teaches in the classroom, so that they're getting the language and the visual supports and the the accommodations that they might need to access that a little bit better. And that is working out really well. But it was a complete redesign of how we're using our EL teachers. So that's a big goal. Our No Place for Hate Committee is going into its 2nd year under the leadership of Catherine Morris, and we're really excited for the activities that will be student-led, that will continue to focus on identity and belonging. And then lastly, we are really looking at different ways to tackle attendance. So our attendance overall as a school is great, it's just fine, but we do have some students or families that struggle with good attendance or timeliness. And again, just another shout out to our school adjustment counselor, Teresa Guillaume. In her former role, she worked as an attendance success person. So we thought we could tap into some of her ideas. And so this year we now have an attendance team. Once students hit so many missed days of schools, we have a contract that they sign, and the parent comes in and we work around that. And we've had some success already with a couple of students who needed some support in that area. So we're really excited to see if it will have an impact. And then, again, just our thank yous. As Mr. Mullen said, there are a few new things here this year, like the LIFTS program, obviously Wit and Wisdom. High Street Studios, Jenny Carlson has been wonderful working in providing dance programs across all grade levels through our special programs and fries. But yeah, that's it. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I do, yeah. Thank you so much for all of that. Just one question, not to put you on the spot, probably any number of you could answer this in terms of how are you aligning on specifically program professional development or things at the programmatic level that students at Winthrop might be getting that Doyon aren't, or just how is that sort of tackled within, in the spirit of aligning?
I mean, I think, you know, we still do have our own identities to some extent. Like I saw at Doyon, they use the Change is Simple, is that right? Program. That's not something that we have, but I think sometimes we get a little caught up in the name of the program, whereas some of the ideas and the instruction, the pedagogy might be the same, even if it's not within the same program. I know we've had like the longstanding ballroom dance program. I don't know if that is maybe something that you're thinking of that I know has been like solely a Winthrop thing. But I think we are way more aligned now than we were even 3 years ago, whether that's through our Compass committees and meeting across grade levels. Is there anything specifically that you're thinking of, Haley, that I could answer?
It popped into my head when you were going through goal number 1, and specifically with the SEL supports that you, like the LIFTS program, the little spot, mind up, those things. That's,
Yeah.
But
Sure. Well, the LIFTS program is district-wide, so we made sure that that was district-wide. So we have Winthrop teachers, Doyen teachers, middle school, high school, teachers, counselors. And, I think that sometimes, we want to allow our school adjustment counselors to implement a program that they know really well, or maybe have had some training on, but the values are still the same, right? Like we're looking at, talking about emotions and regulation. Zones of regulation is a big thing. I'm not sure what Domini uses specifically at Doyen, but that's something that they would get together on a monthly basis and talk about and collaborate anyway. Yep. Yep.
Just wanted to mention that all professional development is offered district-wide, so it's done through the Teaching and Learning Office. And Amy mentioned Compass, which is a district-wide team of pre-K through 12 teachers who meet through me once a month and do the curriculum review cycles you talked about. We're especially proud to have a new literacy coach, and the importance of that role is she's shared between the two schools. So all the professional development that you saw is coordinated in conjunction with her. Her name's Alyssa Brand. We're going to be asking that Payne grant funded position move to the appropriated budget next year so that we can continue, so I'm volleying off to the budget a bit, to continue to support that aligned PD, so we're sure there's equity between the two schools. But any PD that comes through any of the grants goes through the Teaching and Learning Office. We make sure it's offered to all.
And was the dyslexia prevention or dyslexia action plan, that professional development where teachers attended, was that teachers from both buildings?
It was more administrators, so it was Alyssa Brand, the literacy coach, Cindy Welch, the Winthrop reading specialist, did attend, Susan Moore, the Doyen literacy specialist, Mr. Mullen, Mrs. Amison, Megan Ganley, and myself. Did I forget anyone? Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think it was similar to Haley's question. The more, obviously, amazing things are happening at both schools. I just think going forward in the next couple of years, as much as we can try to align on things, not the exact same programs necessarily, but those underlying values as we sort of move towards
We're now
potentially
to
consolidating the
point
schools might make
where we have the same
transitions.
curriculum in both schools. So we've done curriculum review cycle. It's very impressive.
Yeah,
actually.
no, and a lot
So each
has
school
been
definitely
done.
has its unique character, but
Right.
PD, curriculum, teacher leadership, it's aligned.
Yeah.
So that's been a labor of love.
Yeah.
And just off the top of my head, Kate, like, we have the same theme this year, the CARES theme. We also have the same world language program. I definitely think that there are still some, things that, we can bring together, but it feels so much more of a collaboration and a connection between the two schools than ever. So I feel very good about the work that we're doing.
Good. That's great to hear. Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Next up, we have Mr. Peter Ginolfi from Ipswich Middle School. I don't really need to introduce people, but it's fun. So there you go. You're-
Hopefully you can see I do make a better door than I do a window. But first I want to thank Sean Fitzgerald, assistant principal, and also our school council for helping put this presentation together. You're very helpful. So spent a couple days in school council working on it, so happy to present it tonight. So first goal, before that, I'll talk about the artwork. This really represents a lot of our philosophy really at the middle school. As you might know, the middle school stage of development where our kids are in is very much peer-driven, everyone trying to fit in and be like their peers. So any chance we can get to really celebrate diversity and just their individuality, we do that. So our teacher does a great job with all the different projects. But that's why our Halloween's a little different in the middle school. Our Spirit Week this week is a little different. Really trying to get the students to think about themselves as individuals rather than just trying to fit in, because that's the big challenge in middle school. So our first goal, which is having educational experiences that meet the students' social and emotional needs and academic needs. We had 3 action steps from last year. This first one's about iReady. I think we were all present last year when we talked to FinCom a lot about, they had a lot of questions about iReady. That's our formative assessment system. That's very important because that's a great measure to get for our teachers to get back and see how our students are doing, rather than waiting for the MCAS, which comes when the students have moved on to the second year. In the past, that was our math teachers had that, and last year we opened it up to humanities as well. We had some PD for them last year, really about how to use the system and how it works. This year we had a little more professional development in the beginning of the year about what to do with that data, how to make groups, how to use that data to help set up groups and teach the students more where they are. So we've done a lot with that with iReady, so now we're using it in reading and in math, and we have a baseline test in the fall, they take that. We have another one coming up in the winter and also at the end of the year to see how they've done. And again, that's diagnostic feedback for our staff, so we're using that often. And iReady offers a number of different tools as well. Some of at our 6th grade especially, they use it weekly. Another action step was to improve the transition from 8th to 9th grade. We have learning cycles, which you may not know about. This is the time we have it on our Thursdays, our early releases. 3 or 4 different times during the year, we partner with the high school, and we have different teachers working on different aspects. And we had our 8th grade team, a lot of our 8th grade team work with freshmen, teachers that mainly teach freshmen, and they just talked about the unique needs of the group. They ended up making a slideshow and presented that to the rest of the freshman teachers. Hopefully that was helpful. I don't know if John has any feedback later on that. But another thing we did was just really streamline our scheduling process for the high school. This year, our counselors went right to the pod and worked with our students, and it was much quicker than it was in the past, probably when Charlie did it. I don't know what they used in the past, being my first year last year, but it's probably they sign up in isolation and then try to figure it out. But it was much more personal, and the counselor said it was much smoother than it's ever been in the past. And once again, hopefully that aided the high school transition. A third goal we had was supporting our students emotionally. We have a number of different groups. TAG is something that happens in our 6th grade health classes, where it's just really breaking the ice and getting to know them, where we're bringing in the 2 different elementary schools and bonding into one, which they'll be in the rest of the way. So we continue those things. Last year we had a social emotional learning committee that focused on the needs of our students, and we did a relationship mapping activity to find out which students were connected and maybe which students might need some more connections, and we reached out to them. Restorative justice is a big piece of that. I'm going to save that for the 3rd goal. That definitely comes in here. We added some new clubs, a Tide Club, which is about diversity and equity, and they do a lot of great work. But let's go. Our next goal, the same as everybody else, is about building an engaging and challenging academic program. We can switch to that. We had our benchmark reading. This is a goal that we had last year. We really wanted to provide our students with an opportunity to have a little bit more of a high-stakes atmosphere. I know coming off of COVID, things were, I wouldn't say scaled back, but they weren't as rigorous perhaps. We were very much worried students coming back not to overwhelm them, so this is a little more of a high-stakes test, and it's different in each grade level. In 6th grade, it really doesn't impact their grading at all, but it's really a great teaching opportunity to get us ready for the MCAS, which reading is really where we're strongest. If you can remember back to the presentation earlier, our scores that are the highest departure from the state scores are definitely in writing. Our students write very well, and we want to leverage that and keep going forward. So we have that in the spring, in the fall, and then the spring. We're going to be doing it in December, coming up soon. Really feels like the fall, even though it's December. And then we'll do it again in the spring, but it really lets the students have a little more challenge, and definitely perseverance is one of the SHOMs that we want to address there. 8th grade MCAS, that's a new, civics is a new test that went into place last year. It was a pilot last year. We recently got the scores back. We did pretty well. We probably averaged about 10 points higher than the state average. It was only the pilot, so it doesn't count. This year it goes into effect and will be on their report, and it's for real. We had some PD for our staff in that last year. I know teachers went out to Marlboro and went to a state-funded PD day to learn about the test and how it works. And we're in year 4 of our civics program. It's going very well. The civics project is a piece of it. That's really interesting. One in particular, one of our students from last year had a project about, they saw a need in the community where there wasn't a lot to do after school for middle school students, so they started a project, and it is taking off. Ascension Church has done a lot with us. We're January 6th, we're opening it. It's going to be an after-school program in combination with EEP and the Y, and like I said, Ascension, and that's really exciting. This came right from a student, their idea, and they put it into place, and it's going to be impacting all of our students in less than a year and half a year. Really remarkable. So that's part of our civics project. Then just transdisciplinary activities. We do a lot of that. Our humanities, the whole foundation of our humanities is blending different disciplines together. We have a book, Long Walk to Water is one example our 6th grade reads that blends studying social studies, geography, studying Africa. Obviously, it's a book, so they read it. There's the English component. There's a lot of science involved, and sustainability and lack of water. And also just volume. A lot of the story is just the struggle of literally physically carrying the water from village back to home to the water site. So students learn about volume. They work the math in there, so it's a nice transdisciplinary project. Others are in our STEAM side of our academics do a lot of projects as well. Their probability fair is a big piece of that. Also our 6th grade cell project brings a lot of different disciplines together, and they set it up right in this room. It's a giant half sphere. It almost touches the lights. It's a giant cell that they go in and produce all the organelles and everything. It's a nice activity. So, our third goal is, I can summarize it a little bit more than the long goal there. Sorry, I was going to flip pages and I stopped. It's just preparing our students for a complex world that we live in. Good, Tracy. Thanks. We had a number of different things here. This is where the restorative justice comes in. Last year we said we were going to really embark on restorative justice and train more of our teachers. Right now we have about 2/3 of our staff trained, and we've done a lot in this area. We've changed our schedule to fit this into our school day. Happens about once or twice a month on Thursdays. We have school-wide restorative circles. Everybody in our school is doing them at the same time. Myself, Sean, everybody from all our staff, all our teaching staff, our paraprofessionals, administrators. We're all running. We have two adults in a room, and we're running our groups. It's really been powerful. Our students are opening up more. The first time through, our students were a little hesitant and not responding as much, but right now we're doing some softball, getting to know you type of questions, but we have a whole database of different topics, drama in school, fitting in, time management, many different types of circles that we're going to be rolling out as the year goes. And really it's just a framework. I see it all over the building. Teachers are using it in their classrooms. It's just a framework for how to discuss topics. We saw it in computer science the other day. So that's something we're very happy about. Over the summer, all the guidance and administrators were trained in Tier 2 and 3 training. This is really tackling more issues that come up that are a little more harm was done, and we need some more to restore that. And we've done a few of those when things have popped up. But we're very excited about the restorative justice, and I think it's going to be a big part of our school now and also going forward. So some of our students were trained in that. They're going to help decide which topics are done and when. So we're incorporating them as well. Another area is similar to what Amy and Adam had said, really trying to look at, culturally look at our students looking out and seeing their place in the world and trying to bring other things in. So one of the things was a lot through language. We really wanted to add French, right? It was just they had it one class in 6th or 7th grade, and that was the end of it. But we really wanted to ramp that up and give them a broader experience like they do in Spanish. In Spanish, traditionally, they've had, in 8th grade, they've had it every single day as they do math or science, and they've learned a lot. So we wanted to do that in French as well, and we were able to. So right now we have an 8th grade, one group that takes French. Instead of, they got to choose between French and Spanish. And it's really going to help them hopefully achieve that seal of biliteracy in high school if they can get that foundation in every single day in middle school. So that's very helpful to them. We plan to try to continue this as much as we can. Hopefully the budget allows us to. It's definitely a priority, and those students that are engaged in it are very happy. And hoping right now to have 2 classes of that next year, 2 sections of French. So that's going to be in our budget. Our multilingual leaders club, our numbers haven't increased that much of students that are multilingual, but in the next couple of years, our numbers are going up much more so, especially next year. We have a number of students coming in, and we're incorporating those students into our daily fabric of everything we do, and we have a couple different activities. In conjunction with the high school, they work together. They had a bake sale recently for the staff, not for the students, just for the staff. Make sure that's on the. It was just the staff was able, but they were able to show off their culture and share a part of their world with us. The showcase at the end of the year is very special, especially the high school students who have been through a lot have some great presentations. They show off their literature that they've created, short stories, poems, and then they also have a nice little celebration there too, so that's another activity. We'll continue to do that. And finally, just about some of the projects we're involved with for community service and also some of our place-based learning. A lot of that comes through the PAIN grant. But first for community service, our food drive, which is actually going on right now, sort of in conjunction with our Spirit Week. Students can earn points about different things they bring in. Right now, the 6th grade is pulling in the most, but we make a huge donation to the Open Door every year. Walk for Hunger, similar to the Open Door, that's in the spring, and last year we raised over $17,000 that we were able to donate. Project 351 that's a statewide program where we have one 8th grader each year represents. 351 is the 351 towns and cities in Massachusetts, and we have one student, each town gets one person. And we have our 8th grader, we're announcing it officially next week, but we can do a soft opening here. Cora Joss is our 8th grader who's going to be our 351 representative, and that's a lot of community service. She's fantastic. There's a couple other things, our ecology school, our 8th grade civics project, which culminates with the trip to Washington, D.C. Those are PAIN grant funded for some of our students. We make it accessible to anybody who can go, and PAIN grant's a big piece of that. But that definitely gets us out in the world and seeing the world and not just in small Ipswich. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Anybody has any? Charlie?
I just want to congratulate or acknowledge improving the transition from 8th grade to high school. I know that my opinion, or my experience of it was a little bit different because we had COVID, obviously. But I do know it was a huge change, especially in the how the middle school used to structure their curriculum. The level of high school writing was very different from middle school writing. And it still is. The essays you write are different. using history, science, math, open responses. I was just wondering, are you working to increase the caliber of middle school writing
Yeah,
to
and
the,
that-
the high school level?
Yeah, well, that was part of what I talked
Right.
about, those benchmark assessments. It's really more of a challenge for our students, and that's where our highest scores above state average are in our writing. So we want to leverage that. We don't want to rest on our laurels, but push more that way. And a lot of that comes through our learning cycles, too. I'm not sure if you're aware what those are. Eighth grade, middle school and high school teachers get together and work on different topics a lot of vertical articulation and different,
Oh, great.
there really could be anything that they come up with that is going to benefit the students. We have a lot of different groups. Tracy's obviously very involved in that, but we have that every year.
No, but I just saw that, and that was
Yeah.
great, just because that was
One
the
of those-
biggest struggle that I've noticed from middle school to
I'm sure during COVID, it
school.
was
During COVID
more
especially.
so than ever.
So I know my opinion might be a little bit biased in that, but yeah.
Well, thank you. Anybody else?
So, thank you. Sounds like really, like the other schools, a lot of really great things going on at the middle school. I was just gonna ask if there's ever anything sort of school-wide that's going on that the schools are doing that school committee members could be invited to, like the probability fair or any multi-language learner school-wide events. I think it'd be really interesting to have someone from school committee go to those.
Yeah, I
And
can reach
you
out.
know, I've
We-
been through some of them as a parent, but we have some school.
Yeah, some of those
committee
things are in our newsletter, but I can put out emails to everybody. I think there's two people that get our newsletter here because they have children in the middle school, but we can put it out
Yeah,
to
I
a
mean,
wider
just if you
group.
think of anything, I think
Definitely.
it is nice for us to see some of this stuff sort of in action, so.
Yeah.
One calendar when all that stuff lives.
Yeah, we won't come to everything, but just, I think it would be great to see some of this stuff in action.
But on that note, I was just contacted recently, I didn't talk to Dr. Blake about it, but there's a professor from,
Sure about this, Peter?
yeah, I'm going to go for it. There's a professor from Johns Hopkins University who read an article about Ipswich sustainability education from a 2021 article in Edutopia, and he wants to come talk with me and visit some of our teachers next week. He's writing a book about schools of the future and wants to feature our school and some of the project we're doing, so I think it's a great opportunity. We do a lot around our ecology school, Change is Simple, our 7th grade trips. And I mentioned the 6th grade ecology school and the 8th grade Washington DC trip, but our 7th grade students are all sustainability related. Canoeing in the river where they do samples, they go to the watershed, they go to, what's the place in Gloucester again? And Sean's friend is involved. Cedar Rock Farms. We do a lot of different things ecologically that has caught the eye of others. So recently when I was at a conference in NSTA, the science conference, it was so much about sustainability and everyone's talking about it, and I was able to give real life examples of what we're doing. So I think that's nice for our staff, students to be recognized at that level. So, do we have to go ahead on that? Any other questions I can answer? Thank you.
I'd like to introduce Mr. Jonathan Mitchell, high school principal.
Good evening, everybody. I apologize, I'm a little bit under the weather. I probably won't be my usual vivacious self, but I'll do my best for the presentation. Wear a suit to try to bring more energy. So we're a collaborative community that fosters equity among learners. We engage in personalized acquisition of the skills and knowledge essential to becoming successful, contributing, and responsible citizens. So here's our first goal that we've heard a lot about tonight. Our next slide is going to have, it's kind of a mixture of action steps and goals. Some will read more like goals and some more like action steps. And this is the very fancy thing that Tracy's getting you all excited about. Instead of arrows, I used emojis to kind of give a at-a-glance idea of how we did on those particular action steps or goals.
So it's a little different at the high school. That's where people want to stand out, the individuals.
I had tried to drink. We're in the second year of the plan, so I had to try to do something a little bit different from last year. So the next slide is going to have more information. That was actually a trip to, you might remember, if you've been to Burrito Spice. That was a Spanish class that went to Burrito Spice to just practice using their language, and they integrated with our EL students and ordered all in Espanol. Charlie takes French though, so.
Wait.
Our goal was to, and our first action step or goal was to get 3 out of 4 points in all subgroups on the MCAS. And unfortunately for English, we had 0 out of 4 points. And in math, in our lowest performing students, we only had 1 out of 4 points. So there's some room for improvement. In order to address the shortcomings in ELA, we created a course this year that's called Reading and Writing Around the World. It's for a targeted group of incoming freshmen. They're in the class right now, and it's designed to help their literacy skills, not just test prep, but just help them become better readers and writers across the curriculum so they can be successful in every content area, not just English. We are also revamping the English 10 curriculum. We found that it had mostly longer pieces of fiction, and over the last several years, the MCAS ELA test has evolved to include a lot more shorter nonfiction pieces and informational text that require students to read 2 separate pieces of writing and synthesize what they've learned from those and be able to reflect and think about those and respond in writing. And we haven't done enough of that in the English 10 curriculum, so we're trying to find pieces of informational text and nonfiction that connect with our anchor texts so that they can have more practice in those skills. We're working on that. If you remember, a couple years ago, we initiated a peer mentoring program. And just to make sure that we're on target with it, we're going to create a survey to give to our current freshmen and probably the peer mentors to talk about how we can improve the program moving forward. We have prioritized our student support staff in the budget last year, and we look to do that again this year because even though the pandemic is over, we still are in the midst of a, I think, mental health almost crisis. It's not just common to hear, but I think it's something across the country we're still struggling with. So it's important to keep those students supported because if they're not in the right frame of mind in the classroom, there's no way they're going to be able to learn. We could have the best teachers in the world, but if a student is really struggling with their social, emotional health or mental health, they're not going to take in what the teachers are teaching. And in order to, I heard the word diagnostic. Someone used the word diagnostic before. I don't know if it was Peters. It's a great word. We're creating some common assessments. We've just spent the last 18 months revamping our curriculum. We've got some scope and sequence documents that are consistent across the board in our classes. And now the task is going to be create these common assessments that will yield data every quarter that we can look at to identify trends in student learning so we can diagnose issues, so we can remediate them before the big test happens. Even though MCAS is not going to be a graduation requirement, it is still a test we're going to give, and it's still going to be part of our accountability. So we have to make sure that we're still moving students forward, even though they don't need to pass the MCAS to graduate. Our second goal, of course, is creating innovative learning environments. To explain what that picture is, that was from our environmental science class where the students were learning about how species have adapted to hide themselves for camouflage to avoid predators. So the teacher had put these different colored pieces of like little discs, and the kids, they had to time themselves how fast they could find the different colors on different backgrounds. So I thought that was pretty neat. So we've, I think, really improved our bridge program. A few years ago, it was largely students who were going to Dairy Queen to work more hours, or they're going to work more hours at the Hard House, even though they had no intention of going into the restaurant or hospitality business. But our 2 coordinators, David Wood and Jared Harvey, really have done a lot of work gathering more community members in who have more authentic experiences for kids beyond just their regular part-time jobs. And I think it's led to kids, getting their real estate licenses and getting to a real estate practice. So it's led to kind of more thoughtful, career-oriented learning experiences, internships for the Bridge program. Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. I already started talking about this slide. Our Student Advisory Council is going to start working on some I can statements. We've all heard about the successful habits of mind for many years. It's written in very easy to read language, but it doesn't really translate into like what we want students like specifically. What skills and traits and knowledge do we want them to have to be able to demonstrate proficiency in those different successful habits of mind? So the Student Advisory Committee is going to start looking at each one of those successful habits of mind and coming up with I can statements about just to kind of be more specific and transparent what those really mean in real life. Today and tomorrow, our history, social studies teachers and ELA teachers are attending their national conferences in Boston, which has been quite a struggle for our sub-caller today and tomorrow. But they always come back all jazzed up with new ideas, so I'm looking forward to hear what, some of the sessions that they attended and what they can bring to the classroom. We also have brought in PD this fall on identifying implicit bias and preventing microaggressions with Dr. Khalees Warnham. It's been probably the most widely praised PD that I've brought in so far as a principal for our staff meetings. I had to earn the staff's confidence back about some PD that I brought in a couple years ago about social emotional learning. That totally tanked, and people are so bitter about it. But after we had Dr. Warnham's first session, universally people came to us like, that was awesome, she's so great, and so we're so excited about this. So I'm really thrilled that we brought her on board. Here's a picture from Service Learning Day, our day of service. It aligns with goal number 3. These were action steps and goals. A lot of happy faces there for goal 3. We earned the No Place for Hate distinction. Chelsea Shields put in yeoman's work in that with our DEI committee to take care of 3 different projects to earn that very excellent distinction. Our ELA curriculum, as I mentioned before, it's not only is it being looked at for integrating more nonfiction texts, but it's also making sure we have more modern and diverse authors to make sure that our students of color see people more like themselves and the authors that they're reading. Chelsea Shields has written a draft of a social justice class. I put a V in there, it's not social justice, social justice that aligns with goal number 3. It's just to kind of give kids a different perspective, because obviously we're in a very homogenous community, racially at least, and so it's a course designed to have kids realize other perspectives and be prepared to go into a world, as the goal said, that's more diverse than the one that they're growing up in. And our day of service continues to evolve after 2 iterations. It's a lot of work, it's very chaotic, but it ends up being a great experience for kids. And to make it a little bit less chaotic, we're exploring the idea of maybe making it not on an MCAS day. The thinking was, the MCAS days were always kind of crazy anyway, why not add a little bit more chaos to the mix? But I think we hit the threshold for chaos, and so we're going to look at a non-MCAS day. And that's all I have. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I like the faces. That's a good touch.
Oh, thanks, Charlie.
Yeah, that's good. Worth the wait. Thank you. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
I think throughout the year, it's easy for the school committee to look from the 30,000-foot view, and, we're concerned about the facilities, we're concerned about different policies and things like that, and these kinds of presentations, and when we hear about the MCAS and, the curriculum work that's being done, you get to see firsthand all the really great stuff that's going on in each of our buildings. So I just want to commend Dr. Wagner and the entire leadership team for all of their work. Doing great stuff, and we've got a great teaching staff as well. We're working directly with the kids, so thank you to all of them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
I always try. I try to respect their time, and the administrators put in a ton of hours during the course of the week. So thank you very much, and that's why I'm shipping them out of here now. Good night. Thank you.
Right.
And Eric sat in the background and didn't have to say a word tonight. Thank you, Eric. See you. Good night.
Yeah. All right, so next up is the superintendent's administrative report.
Yes, I'm liking this new order that we have going here. This is great. So since our last meeting, I met with the tech director and digital learning specialist to review several initiatives that they're also working on in the district, including an update on the district to the district website. We'll be rolling that over into a new website by the end of this year, for sure. A data dashboard that we're looking at for teachers and planning for the upcoming vacation period. As you know, there's lots of computer systems upgrades that we try to tackle during each of the different school breaks. So we started talking about what's going to be happening over the Christmas break. It's usually when they back up servers and install new equipment, new versions of software, et cetera. Bless you. The policy working group met, as well as the FEFI's policy working group. You'll be hearing more about these, and I'll talk about a number of committees that have all met within the last 2 weeks. The Ed-Eval committee met, which is administrators and teacher representatives, to review the schedule, the evaluation tools, and review the work for this year, including examining the new rubric that has come out from the state before we adopt it as a district. Ipswich Aware met last week, and Justine May and I were the presenters for that meeting. We talked about the recent crisis response, the protocols that we have in place, and ongoing mental health needs of our students. The Budget Subcommittee met to discuss the overarching drivers for this year's budget and plan for the meeting with our administrative team, which will be taking place in December. Communications Subcommittee also met. As I reported out to the Tri-Board meeting Tuesday night, I did receive a phone call from MSBA regarding our readiness to proceed with a project on the Paul F. Doyle Memorial School site. As I said during that meeting, it was a very positive conversation. I responded with an emphatic yes, that we were in fact ready to move forward with a project on that site. It's the first of what I hope will be 3 notifications for us. They called that essentially a readiness call. We haven't been officially invited into the process yet, but I should hear before December 13th when they post their agenda, and then if we're being invited in, we would hear then, and then I would have to go to the meeting. And I'm not sure if it's virtual or if it's in person. Last time around, the meeting, it was pre-COVID, the meetings were in Boston, so I just got on the train and went in. These may be virtual, so, and they would be open to the public as well for listening purposes.
Sorry, did you just say the date of the meeting?
The meeting itself is December 13th. They have regularly scheduled board meetings. They have to post their agendas 2 days before, similar to us. So before they post what they're going to be talking about, they let school districts know whether you're going to be invited in or whether you're on the agenda to be invited in or not. So, and then there's a formal vote at the board to invite you in. So it's not done till it's done, right? So,
I believe they're 10 a.m. meetings. Like they're not evening meetings.
yeah, they're daytime meetings, yep. I spent considerable time last week and early this week reviewing and reworking the entire capital plan. It's one of my goals for this year. I submitted a draft to the town finance director, but I do have additional information that I have to follow up with. The town's also reviewing their process and backup and the items that they need for backup as well. I anticipate that that's going to make the process a lot more efficient moving forward. The capital plan has kind of been, with the changes in personnel, both at the town administrator, town finance director. I've been here as the superintendent, but we've got the facilities director. So there's been a lot of turnover in there, and so there's some missing pieces of information that I have to backfill. A lot of what was in the capital plan since 2019 and on were items that were pulled from the School Dude Solutions report that had been done with no real backup or rhyme or reason as to why. It was just, okay, this is the year where we think we're going to change out these filters or this air handling system. There was no backup about what the air handling system was that you were trying to replace or why, and so we've been, I had discussions with Brad Orm, the facilities director, just about where we see things going, and some of the projects have already been done. Some things we think we can move out a couple of years. I think the prospect of being invited back into the MSBA process may change things a little bit, but understanding that we've still got to occupy these buildings for the next 7 years, 6 to 7 years before we can open something new. So some of the things will be able to shift, but maybe not everything. So everything gets submitted to the town, and then I'll sit down with the town manager and finance director, and Tom will get involved, and we'll look at it and prioritize things. Life safety stuff comes first, obviously. Things that absolutely have to be repaired or replaced, take precedent. And then prioritize the whole plan moving forward. I moved some things around for this next fiscal year. We hadn't been including anything for our athletic program in that specific capital plan. So I put in, I needed to put in funding because we need to do some work in the gym, the upper gym here. The gym floor needs to be done. We've also been talking about new bleachers that are needed. Those are original to the building, and they're in tough shape, and we can't get parts and things like that. So I put a couple of those items in and moved some other things out. So we'll see how it shakes out in the coming months as we get closer to the budget presentations, and go from there. So went to sleep here. Let's see. I met with Chris Chapman and Jenny regarding the Safe Routes to School program and the pedestrian concerns, just around what we see as problem areas for kids walking to school or riding their bikes to school, and they identified a bunch of areas, and I concurred that those were some of our hot spots as well, if you will. But I think you'll be talking about that a little bit later, maybe? Yes? Okay. Then we had the tri-board meeting. I had a meeting also with Becky and Alicia from the IEA to discuss contract starting dates for, some of the various provisions. So there were some provisions that started obviously immediately, like the retroactive pay and stuff like that, which we're working on diligently in our office. But there were other things that we changed in the contract, things like the Monday meeting days moving to Thursdays. Well, when is that going to take place? When does it make the most sense? Are we going to implement the additional professional development day this year in the spring? So a lot of those things. So we went through the whole MOA for each contract and just identified what was being implemented when. So I'll be sending out a memo to everyone so that everybody understands what's in effect and when it went into effect. You heard earlier, the EDP middle school program, a student, Sydney, put together she understood the need, and working with some folks in the middle school, that in conjunction with some work that Ipswich Aware was doing last year with some drop-in nights for the middle school students, Sydney developed a survey that she sent out to the whole middle school. She took time and met with each grade level. They filled out the survey. We've got great response rate on the survey, identifying different things that middle school students would be interested after school. So the EDP program is going to be sort of overseeing that. It'll be housed at Boone Hall. Tuesday night, we actually conducted a walkthrough of Boone Hall just to see the space and understand what we have access to, what we may not have access to, and what we need for storage and things like that. We've got different types of programming being developed. We have a position posted for a site coordinator for like 12 hours a week. So it's just from that 2:30 to 4:30 range, after school, before dinner time, when there's a lot of activity downtown, that we're trying to provide some structure to for our students. And then it's a longer day on Thursdays when we have the early release. So we hope to have a soft opening after the holiday break in January. So today I attended a discussion with some other regional superintendents around special education and trying to regionalize some of our services. Understanding that, budgets are tight, and, to send one student perhaps to an out-of-district placement may be difficult, and we're all sending to different places, but if I have a program here in-house, then I can take students from other districts in the area that may have similar needs, and so we're trying to develop programs in different schools to better meet the needs of all of us, because we can certainly, if I have a program in-house, I can do it for less money perhaps than sending them out to an out-of-district placement. The other piece is that the out-of-district placements are struggling with their numbers. They've got a lot of students, so the student need is there, and so we're just trying to ease the burden at that level. So those are ongoing conversations. And then tomorrow, I'll be in Marlborough for the day with the next phase of the race, equity, diversity, and inclusion work around persuasive conversations. And then just two quick updates. The classroom at the Winthrop School will be getting, I'll say, refinished over Thanksgiving break. They're coming in, they're going to finish grinding the floor, putting down a sealant, and then tiling the floor again. So that'll be ready, hopefully the week after we come back from Thanksgiving, by the time we get the teacher moved back in and everything to that classroom. And then I met with the project manager and the flooring company to look at the next phase. As you know, we had capital plan monies to redo this area out in front of the Performing Arts Center here in the hallway. We did all of Main Street already, and then we have the rotunda and the two entryways for the middle school and high school that all still have to be done. So we brought them back in today to talk about, okay, what do you think you can get done in the 8 days, 8 work days that you have during the Christmas break this year, the holiday break? And so we're going to tackle this area out here in front of the pack. So the tile will come up. They'll take care of any of the imperfections in the concrete, and then put down the same flooring that we have out on Main Street. So that'll be sort of the second phase. And then the last piece of it, we'll have to wait till school gets out in the spring, just to finish that project off, because I think they underestimated what they were gonna find under the tile floor that's out there. So when they started the job last summer, a couple of weeks late, and then when they started pulling up the tiles, there were a lot of problems that they found underneath with the concrete not being level. There were some hollow spots, air pockets or whatever. So they had to do a lot more work, I think, than they anticipated. So it took them a lot longer to accomplish that. And so I didn't want to risk them starting something that there was no way they were going to be able to finish in that time frame. So we're just going to tackle this area out here. They were fine. They're confident that they can get it done. And then next summer, we'll just tackle the rest of it. So, and that's it.
And then, is refixing the tile, is there like a practical reason, or is it just a cosmetic, like facelift, or is it like there's an issue with the tile, or?
It's more, this flooring that we're putting down is more durable. The tiles are worn out. It's a no-wax tile, so we don't have to worry about stripping and waxing those floors every break anymore.
Right.
It's just, you wash them and we're done.
Oh, gotcha.
A lot more efficient.
Yeah.
Just a quick question on the revamped capital plan. Was our new facilities director involved in that? And then would we ever consider doing a new Dude Solutions report, or do we feel like we have a pretty good sense of what we need to do in that? That's 5 years old, and.
Yeah, so it's a great question. I don't know that we've tackled enough of the projects in there to warrant
Doing
another study.
Okay.
I think that Dude Solutions report looked at all of our systems.
Yeah.
So we already know, like, the age and the wear and tear and all of
Yeah.
those kinds of things. So we've got a lot of it mapped out already
Okay, yeah,
about what we need to.
okay.
Focus
It's just
on,
sort of
so,
prioritizing
yeah.
and.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. And so I did sit with Brad on a couple of occasions to review this plan and try to get information from him and the records that were left for him from Chris around some of the items. For example, there was money in next year's capital plan to repave the parking lot at the Paul F. Doyle Memorial School.
No.
I don't know how or why. It's not in bad shape. Brad and I both walked it. I walked it with Adam and with Scott, and it's not something that we need to spend $150,000 on next year. It just doesn't, it's not warranted. So we did look at all those kinds of things. And that's a lot of the uncertainty, is having to go through and look at each item and say, does this need to be replaced, or is it something that we can move out a couple of years? And just trying to understand what those items were.
And then just a quick question on the new EDP program at the middle school. Is that an expense to the district for that 12-hour position, and are there other expenses to the district?
So
for that?
initially, the EDP program
It's
in and of
self-sufficient.
itself is self-sufficient.
Elementary ones.
Yeah, completely self-sufficient.
Yes.
There's an adequate balance in that account that we can start this program.
Okay.
And then we're looking for grant funding to help support it, and then we'll see, once we gauge the need
Right.
and how exactly it's going to work, then we can talk about perhaps attaching some type of a fee to it.
Yeah, no, I was
One
just
of the
curious.
things that, no, it's a great question. One of the things that the kids were very loud and clear on in terms of the questions in the survey was they don't want to have to pay for the program. Well, the kids may not want to pay for the program, but it may turn out that parents want their students to go to some kind of a program after
Right.
school. And so we may be able to look at that, late spring or even, into next year to see what exactly the need is.
Were those student surveys or family surveys, or both?
Those were all just student surveys, yeah.
Who takes on the liability for, I don't imagine it's not the church, is it the school?
Yep. We do, we would have a rider on Boone Hall.
Okay.
Yeah, we've worked through all of those types of issues already, so.
Sounds like a great program.
Yeah, and I think once we get the program up and running, there's a lot of interest from the students in it. We'll see how that
It pans out.
interest, pans out. Certainly, once the word gets out to parents, especially current fifth graders, knowing that we have the program and something in place, current fifth graders may be more interested, next year for, when they're in sixth grade in middle school, so.
How are they going to get there?
So, there's a couple of different ways. They'll be able to walk, because a lot of the kids now that we're concerned about all walk downtown from school anyway. They're not necessarily going home and then coming back out. They're leaving here and walking. We also have the van that will be able to transport students directly to there. That was a grant that was written by Sean Fitzgerald. So we have a driver going a couple days a week. Any of the teachers can drive the van. That currently goes back and forth to the Y, and we're envisioning that at least starting off, making a stop at Boone Hall. So there'll be, some transportation provided.
At least one of the bus routes has got to run, if not a couple bus routes run by downtown where you can hop off. No?
That's a little bit
Questionable.
tougher to
Okay.
schedule and,
Yeah.
account for kids.
Okay.
that way.
And then does the plan still involve the library, moving kids?
Yep.
So would there be a check-in system for that, or how would you make sure the kids?
We have it all set up that, Boone Hall would be the home base. There'll be certain activities on certain days that students would be able to go over to the library or perhaps the Y or the fields out across the street, as well as activities in Boone Hall. So we want to provide options for kids without locking them in. And, obviously when you're doing programming like that, we'll have to have set days that certain things are occurring.
One last question on this topic.
Yeah, that's great.
Does it have its own name, or is it called EDP?
Right now, it's the middle school EDP program. We don't have a formal name for it yet. I don't think anybody's given
Fun
that
acronym.
something different. Yeah,
Something more
we haven't,
mature.
yeah, we
for middle
haven't
schoolers?
gotten there yet.
Who's the student who spearheaded it?
Her first name is Sydney.
Maybe that would be like a fun thing,
Yeah.
that she could put a stamp on it somehow to give
Yep.
it personal, or whatever, I don't know.
She's a great kid. She's a freshman now.
Awesome. That's really, really
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Next, subcommittee working group and liaison reports. Budget.
Yes, good evening.
We met.
I think we met a couple times, actually. The last time we met, we talked about inputs to the administrative team as they begin to meet to prepare their budgets. We recommended or brought up a few items, three in particular. The first was around maintaining the stabilization fund or the override through the 5 years. The second was being mindful of the overall budget increase, and so staying in line with certain percentages, being as close to the increase in revenue from the town overall so that we're as close to that as we can be. And then the third big one that we discussed was reducing administrative fees for students and families across, or for students and families that may be in need. So that could include things like music, field trips, athletic fees.
Right.
The next time, or first time that we are meeting with the administrative team to review their initial thinking, not the full detailed budget, is December 17th. And I think the first time that the full school committee sees everything is end of January. Is that right, Tom?
Yes.
Okay. So a little while before everything comes here, but the subcommittee has several meetings leading up to that. I think the budget calendar has been updated. Is it finalized or locked yet based on what we have from the town?
It is.
Okay, terrific. We'll make sure that gets published so everybody sees it, but you got a little while before there's any meetings for you. And then the last one, the last item that we talked about was taking time in a future school committee meeting for Tom and I to share and go over the stabilization or override calculator. Again, we spent some time on it last year, members, but also just something everyone should be familiar with. So we'll do that in an upcoming meeting.
Wonderful. All right. Communications.
Oh, let me keep going. The November newsletter is in the meeting folder. If you haven't taken a look at it, please do that now. I'll talk through the sections that are in there. Again, what we're looking for is feedback on what topics we're covering. Should we, shouldn't we? Is there something we're missing? And then the spirit of the update that we've included in there, not the specific language, phrasing, things like that. The first one is update on contract negotiations on our agenda from earlier and coming up.
Yeah.
An update on the elementary school building project, covering sort of some of the more recent updates, and then a continued reminder about hearing in December and a potential visit to Swampscott Elementary School. We don't have a specific date for that yet, but still thinking about December.
Do you want to put in Dr. Blake's call that he received? Is that something you want to put in there? Or no? No.
I feel, I don't know if would be confusing,
Okay, yeah.
like,
Like, wait, yeah, okay.
I think it's helpful if you're close to and you've been following what's
Yeah.
going on. If you haven't, as a casual observer, I think the context of it, especially we're going to hear in a couple
Right.
weeks.
It's not an official thing, so
right.
it would be confusing.
Yes, as quick aside, we did talk about, should we be accepted, as sort of a one-off
Yeah.
update to, or a one-off newsletter, something like that, to
Right.
share that. The next one is on bullying awareness and prevention. One of the things that we're bringing in new this year is similar related topics where the school committee, through our newsletter, can reinforce these type of topics that the administrators and teachers are reinforcing or driving within the schools. And so this is our way to get out to families. The spirit of each of these is short update, a little bit of a call to action, things you could do immediately, with then linking to additional information. And the idea there is reinforcing, not something new or independent that's already going on in the schools. Little update about staying informed on town news in the same way that we have tried to share more about how people can get updates about what's going on with the school committee, either through newsletter or through social media. Reciprocating here a little bit about making, how people can follow and stay up to date on things going on across the town. And I will point out there, that's the town's site. It's not any specific Facebook group or anything, or general Facebook group. It's very specific to the town. Our normal roundup of activities and accomplishments, and still needs to be updated, but upcoming district events for December. Any other comments, questions about anything in there?
I have a few comments. So scrolling up to elementary school building project, I wouldn't mind a couple of extra sentences in there similar to what was in, maybe pulled from the tri-board presentation in terms of maybe how we reached our decision or the factors that were involved or something along those lines. I don't have language queued up right now, but I feel like we've said 800,000 times, we submitted SOIs in April. I'm just kind of, I feel like that's just, I don't know, maybe skip that and then maybe just add a little more language. Nothing new, I think just maybe pulled from some of the information we said to the tri board. Because I just personally would like to educate the town a little bit more on the why behind our decision and the steps that we went through and the factors that we thought about. So that's just a suggestion, maybe a little more.
I made a quick note
Meat
there.
on that.
I'll pen it afterwards, yep.
And then, I had two more, but it's just gonna take me a second. Oh, activities and accomplishments, the second bullet on the Synthetic Turf Advisory Committee. That's all true, but I worry it might be interpreted that it's school budget funded, and why are we building this big, why are we spending money on this big Phase 2 project when we have failing schools? So maybe just a little bit more information in there about how this project will be largely funded by previously awarded paying grants, or I don't know how we want to word it, but just something to that effect, possibly. And the third one, I don't remember what it was. Hold on one second.
It's being published the last Monday of the month, so we've got a few more days if you have any other, if you remember.
No, I remember the third one, but it wasn't for this. It was just a plant a seed for maybe a December newsletter. I'd love to come up with some community outreach, and maybe we'll talk about this at goals, community outreach things we are going to do around particularly the elementary building project and sort of building consensus. So I'd love to sort of, and then maybe the December newsletter, start to firm some of that up and advertise
Yes.
whatever we
And are
decide to
you,
do.
because that's pending December 13th decision, right? So,
Correct.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, so maybe it's a January newsletter. I don't know, I haven't, that was just,
Yeah,
I
no,
would
good.
like to do some community outreach, and I think putting that stuff in in a future newsletter would be great.
Yeah, definitely.
But you're right, yeah. If it's December 13th, and then we sometimes don't have a second December meeting, so
Yeah,
maybe we could send out an early January newsletter or something.
yeah. Talk about that next month.
I had two things as well. I was going to say, obviously, we say next month we will hear back. Oh, sorry. Next month, we'll hear back about the decision from the MSBA. Do we want to specifically say that we would know by December 13th? Like, do we want to highlight that date? People care.
Like mid-December, be a little more, I don't know.
Yeah. Do you want to did you put December 13th in there? Okay.
And then I don't know if this is something that's worth, it might be too granular, but it came up at school site council, and then obviously the presentations tonight also included the responsive classroom stuff in terms of how CARES is being incorporated, and how families might find that valuable to hear like specific language that's being, like at Doyon, they're doing assemblies around it and that kind of stuff. So just like anytime parents, I think, know specifically, like, this is what your kids are hearing about, this is like kind of part of the ethos of the school and what we're building, that's valuable. That goes home in the newsletters already, so I don't know if it needs to be reiterated here, or if we were doing that for the elementary school level, would we also want to pull out what things are being included for the middle school and high school that are comparable to that? And we may not need to do it this month, but maybe that's something that we would want to think about. How are we extracting those things that are already being communicated to parents? And maybe just say, like, just to show that we understand that that's happening, and it's kind of that intentionality in terms of around, I don't know, knowledge and awareness of what's happening in the schools, so.
I mean, almost where we say school improvement plan presentation, principals of all four schools presented to the school committee the plans for their respective plans. A highlight was hearing about the blah, 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 or just a little bit more
I think we go, that section typically is kind of like one sentence things, but I'm not against it if people want to do that. But I hear what you're saying about having more of that. I actually wrote a note to myself, like in place, like how we have bullying in previous months, we've had different, like gun safety, kind of that more general guidance section that we've incorporated this year, like the restorative justice circles. I'm like, oh, I want to learn more about that, like stuff like that. So I think that's great to either touch upon this newsletter or hit it more broadly the next newsletter.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe you can keep it for a future blurb. And I mean, I know in the past when we did newsletters, sometimes we'd have an administrator that'll write a blurb, like, no, okay. Oh,
This is the school committee newsletter, so I just want to make, because
Yeah,
the
okay.
principals are putting out their newsletters for their folks, so I want to make sure that this
It's ours.
stays true as the school committee's communication with the
Yep.
community.
Yeah.
Sure, yep.
Any other comments on the newsletter? Okay.
Thank you
job.
for those. I made
This looks
notes. We'll finalize it the next day or two.
I wanted to point out something that we had talked about in communications, then just came up during the presentation, that they said, oh, this information goes out in our newsletters. And I think you had brought up in our first communications meeting that you were not able to be at, that adding all of us
Making
to
sure
the-
that all the school committee members are on each of the parent lists for each school,
Yeah.
so that you all get the newsletters from each principal that go out.
Good too.
That would be great, yeah.
Is that something you're gonna,
Yeah,
okay, because I know I've reached out in the past and asked
yeah.
Amy Digby, could you just tech me on the Doyon one? But yeah,
We're-
I think it is great to get them, just to know what's going on.
And on a topic of broadening communication, I reached out to the chairs of the Select Board and Finance Committee today and just said, oh, doing my annual plug, if anybody wants to sign up for our newsletters, and I think that they're forwarding it on to their members, so if anybody hasn't been following us, they hopefully will start, so, yeah. All right, great. Anything from mutual concerns?
I did hear back from Becky Slauson, and she's going to reach out to the teachers and find out when works for them, and she'll come back with a couple of times and days, and we'll get together.
Awesome. All right, and then negotiations, operations, and policy, we're going to hear from after. Same with the elementary group, FEFI's policy working group.
Yeah, so FEFI's policy working group met on November 12th. We dug in pretty deep to the procedures, so we had gotten a lot of feedback from Laura Hillary on sort of the procedures around, particularly the pain grants, so she very skillfully identified a lot of pain points. So we spent a lot of time sort of digging into those pain points and trying to figure out how to address them, essentially. There's pieces, it's a complicated process getting these pain grants, because there's the whole application process, the application forms, all the signatures that are needed for the applications. You know, it's budget, it's the principal, it's the superintendent, it's technology. You know, some people are doing PDFs, some people are printing them out and delivering them to central office. Some people, you know, are doing, so we're trying to sort of try to streamline the process and get more done electronically, bring in DocuSign for these signatures, and all kinds of other things. Diana dug into the applications to see if we could streamline those a bit more. I spent some time reviewing the content on the website. That's, you know, could be streamlined better. There used to be sort of information sessions for new teachers or existing teachers on how to apply. So we talked about potentially having like an infomercial, where there was a video that they could watch that sort of walked them through the steps and things they need to know, and timing and the deadlines. And once you get your grant, how do you access the money, and when will the money be available, and who do you reach out to get to? And so we're just sort of working through all of that. And I think our goal this year, hopefully by the time the paying grant cycle comes up in, essentially March, April, May, we'll have a lot of these procedures in place. So I think that's sort of our focus this year.
We will.
We will, we have
We
to,
will.
yeah. But we made a lot of good progress, and we meet again, I think, December 5th. So, and also another side note on that, I did meet with Larry Seidler, who is a FEFI, so he's on the FEFI committee. He reached out to me. He is stepping down. He's finishing up his second term as a FEFI, so they have a two-term limit. So he's stepping down in June. Feels like there's been a fair amount of turnover on that committee, and I said, I feel your pain. We've had a lot of turnover too, and there's institutional knowledge that gets lost. So we just had a good conversation about that, and basically came to the conclusion there needs to be a little bit better rapport. Just like we're trying to document all the procedures, they're trying to document all their procedures and make sure they're doing things like posting their quarterly reports, posting their minutes regularly for transparency. And then we thought it was a good idea to have a member of the FEFIs come to a school committee meeting every year, and we decided that the second meeting in May was probably the best because, I forget why, we'd have our annual distribution. We might, if we bump up the timeline of the paying grants, we might have the paying grants decided, and they could come and listen to the report on the paying grants.
And if new school committee members would already.
New school committees would be here, thank you. So they could learn about it too. So if people are on board with that, I think that might be a good annually occurring person. We could review the appointments. I think there's a lot of things that could be done. So it was a good meeting. So he's going to try to memorialize some of their procedures before he leaves. And so making good progress.
Could put that right in the policy.
Hmm?
Could put that right in our policy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great. All right, liaison reports. Did you have anything to add about the?
Yeah, we met, the Bike Pedestrian Advisory Board met on November 14th, and we continued to come up with areas, whether it's for the bikes or kids walking to school, sidewalks not being there at all, crosswalk issues, and so our list keeps growing. And so we're just prioritizing now, so we're going to get a list back. We're going to have to prioritize it because it's overwhelming, right? And what I want to do, and they would like me to do, is try to get this on the next few agendas that I could give everybody a list of the issues that we found to be of the highest priority and see what everybody thinks about that. And because it's important to, for when grants are applied for them to see, oh, the school committee agrees with this. These are the priorities that the school committee thinks would be appropriate for the safety of the kids walking to school, biking to school. So in the next few meetings, if we could get on that agenda, and Chris and Brian would be happy to come and talk more too. So, yeah, and then the next day we went with Brian and shared him the list that we have. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Good.
All right, cool. We will find a time to do that. It's great work. Any other liaison reports?
Yeah, I was just going to say for paying grant liaison, so ages ago, Peter and I had emailed about potentially meeting sometime in November after the policy group had a chance to work, and obviously you guys have met quite a few times already. So I would like to circle up with him to just say either you're still working through more time, or maybe we can talk and do an update, or the three of us can meet to try to figure out, because what I think their primary goal this year was to try to move the process up a little earlier. So wherever you are in what you guys are discussing, it might be helpful at some point, either to say, okay, you're going to meet again in December, maybe we should push out when we meet, or what is it appropriate to meet sooner than that?
We meet December 5th. We can try, I mean, we have talked a lot about the timeline, and I think that could be something we might really be able to nail down on the 5th, the due dates, and so I think we're getting closer on that, at least the beginning part of the process. Yeah, so maybe sometime after December 5th, you could meet up
How
with
does
him,
it,
or.
that work, will we be able to have like just a call or something, or is that not allowed? Like, would we have
If
to
it was
schedule
who?
a meeting? to
You-
meet me and Peter? It's okay to do. Okay, so maybe I can reach out to him and say you guys are meeting on the 5th, and we could try to schedule a time for that following week or something. Sure.
I mean, it really, it's a school committee policy, so I think whatever the school committee decides will be the timeline, is what the timeline will be.
Okay.
Right.
I don't think it's not a,
And we have a school committee meeting the 5th, right, as well?
No, the 12th. I know we do too, because I was just looking when you guys have the meeting.
Should we
We're
ask
the 5th.
Peter Janolfi what he thinks, or what his priorities would be for the new policy? Or has he been asked? I know, like, moving up the date was one, but, like, has he said any of his other, like, I would like it if we did X, Y, and Z?
Right, was
I think
he
the
part of
timing's really
that?
up to us.
No, I know the timing, but, like, you know, if there's anything else he feels as the chair might be important to change.
yeah, we've had some of those conversations.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and that's what we could discuss at this phone call or meeting. Because we won't decide everything December 5th, but we could decide, I think we could really decide the dates, and then if we could talk about it at a school committee meeting that night.
I'm glad this came up because I also have us scheduled for 3 meetings in December, so I'll fix my calendar.
Oh, yeah, no, never
With
three
us 3
meetings.
times?
Yeah. Mhm. All month long, guys. La, 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 la.
Or something like that.
Right. We'll delete that. Okay, so I'll, yeah, okay, great, thanks.
Who's our CPAC liaison?
Special education,
Matt,
know that we,
Is it you? I don't have it pulled up.
yeah.
I do, it is.
It is? Okay.
It is me?
I don't know that they've met.
Is that
Special
new this year?
Education Parent
New
Advisory
as of,
Council.
like,
I don't know that they've met.
they hadn't been meeting regularly for a while, so we heard a report from them last spring, I believe.
Okay.
Congratulations.
That come with a sash?
Right. Can reach out to Eric and ask him
work on that.
about it.
Okay, so that's the
yeah.
point person for
Yeah,
that. All right.
I report
Connect
out
with
to
Eric.
IEF about CPAC, and they haven't met. I don't have a report for them on a monthly
Okay.
basis, so.
All right. Just,
So should I reach out to them, or will you just let me know if there's a
I'll let you
meeting?
know, yeah.
Am I on any other committees I don't know about?
On the sheet, no. IF, which you know.
okay,
All right.
great. Next up, high school student representative report.
Well, I'll keep this brief to make up for lost time. Superintendent Blake forwarded me a invitation for the Massachusetts Association of Student Representatives, which I did not know existed, and Jimmy also did not know that it was like a thing. So I have joined. I'm an official member now. Their conference is Saturday, which is unfortunate because it's the same time as our Model UN conference. I'm president of Model UN, can't really miss it. But on the bright news, we're having Ipswich is hosting the 18th annual Ipswich High School Georgetown Model UN conference this Saturday. We expect over 80 kids, which is great. 50-something from Ipswich, 30-something from Georgetown, if everybody who signed up to go actually goes. We have bagels and pizza and everything, so fun day of solving world crises. and the student advisory meets tomorrow. We are hoping to nail down our plan for our donuts for survey answers. So it's very tough to get high schoolers to answer surveys because you email them and they ignore you, or they yell at you, or they push you. So basically, we give them a donut if they answer our survey, a little munchkin. It works great. I mean, we've tried it before. It works great. We do it before school. I mean, without donuts, there's no responses. The donuts really make the responses happen. They're just little munchkins, not really donuts. We're gonna find a date for that, and we'll get some good story about the school. I know the school council's redoing their mission statements, their values, get some responses on that. Hear some more concerns, mass consensus from the student body. So that's the plan for tomorrow, and that's about it.
All right, thank you. Tom?
We'll have a finance report tonight.
Okay,
Next meeting.
all right. Is,
Tom's here. Next meeting?
Yes. Oh, do we want to?
The first meeting of every month, we
Yeah, there
decided
was no,
on.
it's a standing agenda item, which I think is a terrific idea if there's something that comes up in between the monthly reports, of which tonight, there was not.
Okay.
So things are going well.
Many more detailed reports ahead of you in the months ahead.
Yes,
so
I think
enjoy
I
your
I will be a frequent
relaxing
flyer
nap
in the next
tonight.
few months, so I'll take advantage of tonight.
do we want to take like a 5-minute break and then come back for the end? I think we'll,
We haven't started.
we can get through them
Sit
quickly.
down and have a bite of my sandwich.
All right, so we'll plan to come back at 9:18-ish.
Right.
Sound good?
We're adjourning for 5 minutes.
Yes. Recess.
Mike's still on.
That's fine. It's PG.
No, I thought I was.
I know, that's it. This is a cashmere turtleneck sweater. What more can I do?
Be on the school committee.
Just get ready until
Sure.
December and January, and then this room will be boiling, and it'll be too hot to even.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, me too. You won't hear me
All
complain
switches,
about that.
all the time.
It's funny. All right, we're back, 9:19. And we will go with review and approve the 24-25 school committee goals. Haley, would you like to take us through it?
Yep. So we did change 1A specifically. So I didn't mark up, I just implemented the change, so hopefully we can follow. Mainly, we changed 1A to indicate that we, to reflect the vote that we took to move towards a consolidated school. So that language was just a slight tweak. It was a little more open-ended, I think, before we took the vote. And the remaining bullets still reflect what we had there before and what we reviewed last week, just some slight tweaks around that as well. So I'm just going to cruise through. I think it's probably better if people just kind of interrupt as we go. Hopefully everyone's reviewed them. So B is exactly the same as it was the last time, so continue on there. Couple questions that did come across, that one specifically for budget, the first bullet under A. Are there actually ESSER funds that still exist that have not yet been?
They're surplus funds?
ESSER funds.
Oh, no, there were no longer, so
Okay.
there were funds for ESSER for fiscal '25, about $62,000, which have all been committed in part of the fiscal '25 budget, and ESSER has now expired.
Okay.
There were no funds in '26.
So let's remove,
The intention of that was, how do we react now that we no longer have the ESSER funds? I don't know, so one, I don't know if that applies. If it still does, let's just rephrase this. I think we're past that, though. So I think we're okay removing it, but just clarifying the intention of it. I think it's fine. to
Maybe still have positions that
No.
were funded by ESSER, but we sort of
Not in
already.
'25. So we had that thorough conversation as we opened the '25 budget. The only thing funded with ESSER in '26 is some technology funds. So that we do not have any positions, personnel or personnel services on ESSER in '25, just
Right.
IT
So I
materials.
say we get rid of.
And that's my point. Since it's
Yeah.
all been accounted for, I think we're okay to move past it, not that we're still managing ESSER funds.
Okay.
So I do remove it, but just
Although
for
you may want to
clarification.
acknowledge that there are $62,000 in technology services that either need to go somewhere or to be, but there were no staff, no personnel.
I think it's okay to remove, even though we have that, I think it's okay to remove because the funding was so much greater before.
Indeed.
That it would have been a big gap, and that, again, that was the spirit, not the specific line item. Yeah.
So that was my comment. I was suggesting maybe we get rid of that part about the ESSER funds and either just have nothing, or we could add in something about maybe ensuring we meet the needs of recently settled contract negotiations. Because that will be an important part of our
Good one.
budget
like
planning.
I like
That
both
was
of
my
those
question to
suggestions,
you,
yeah.
Bailey.
yeah, so I'm going to swap that out here.
Just to acknowledge, we know that that's,
Good.
Promise I won't spend time on formatting tonight, guys. I'll do it later. Do my best. Jenny, you can be in charge of elbowing me if you see me. Okay, let's go back, sorry. 2B, Kate also made a suggestion that we specifically say, that we add, Diana, you had made the same suggestion for 1B, so I'm going to copy and paste this down. Communicate with superintendent and Director of Finance and Operations to ahead of, sorry, I'm jumping between documents. ahead of 2B. I'm going to add that in here. We did talk about this. It's good that you guys called it out because we talked about how these things we're doing them in conjunction with you guys. We articulated that, I think, when we met, but it doesn't hurt to make sure we're calling it out here as well, if everyone's in agreement. Is it finance and operations or operations and finance? Okay. Right, moving on.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
For 2B, under the second, under the bullet and the first box under the bullet, you may want to consider, or please consider adding fiscal year '28, because the calculator runs up to fiscal year '28. So we're having some of those longer-term conversations around that, because we have to make the existing stabilization fund last until fiscal year '28, at least according to the Town Finance Committee. So adding
We
one more
change-
budget year might be,
Or we could say through
We're in year,
fiscal year
we
28.
did this last time. We're in year 3, 26 is 28 is year 5.
28 is
27 is year 5. 27 is year 5.
Yeah, but we told the finance committee we'd get through 28
correct.
and ask for,
That was part of the conversation about which year is year one.
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
which we don't
For
agree
another
on,
discussion,
but.
The expectation is
Yeah.
fiscal year '28 for the existing stabilization fund. The Finance Committee's expectation.
Yeah, let's talk about it in subcommittee.
And is that,
The-
oop, sorry, go ahead.
Can we just go back to the 2B? School committee is accountable for the budget. We don't have operational responsibility for it. And so I would suggest that communicate with pieces tactically what we would do, but the goal, I think accountability is still appropriate.
Well, and we do have it collaborate with superintendent in the bullet below, so we could leave it bolded how it was, starting with accountability, and add in director of finance and operations down as a
Yeah,
sub,
I think that'd
sort
be
of
better.
part that falls into how we're doing that. So it doesn't, I was going to suggest that we remove it in the bullet below, since we put it up here, but we can just flip it around. We don't need it both places, so we'll just have it below.
In relation to that conversation about what 5 years means, how do we want to handle that the first sub-bullet? Do we want to list that year if we're trying to get our goals set, and then there's going to be a further discussion at at your budget subcommittee?
I think I'm not sure I understand your question. I think the FY '26 through FY '28 budget covers it.
Okay. Is that what you were thinking too? I'm not on budget subcommittee, so I just want to make sure that these align with whatever discussion you're going to have.
I'm okay with the way it's written.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, the spirit of it is we're not just talking about FY '26 budget and budget subcommittee. We're talking about mostly FY '26 budget, but also mapping it out. And my question is that different than 2A, bullet 3, approve a long-term capital plan? Capital plan, sorry. Forget it. Retract my question. I didn't see the word capital in there.
All right.
Carry on.
Okay. So we're going to jump to 3. Everybody's okay with that? Maybe those of you on this subcommittee could look really closely at this to see if it jives.
Yeah, I think it looks good to me.
Good to me.
Yeah, my only thing was, we're so into the procedures, I don't know how much of the actual policy we're going to get changed this year, but as long as we're okay with the spirit of it is we're moving forward. I think the procedures are going to inform the policy, so I don't know if we need to change it, but we might not
Well-
fully revamp the policy.
Yeah, but we could always say it's June and we've done 3 of these. We can incorporate those 3 and then carry it over till
I'm
next
fine
year.
with the way it's written.
In-depth review of, okay, I was going to see if we could tweak it to highlight the procedural piece focus for now, but I mean, I think we're probably splitting
Okay.
hairs. Okay. So on to 4. There weren't actually any changes here either, so if everyone's okay with it, I think we should just, in the interest of time, just cruise through. I was trying to highlight any changes that we may have made, but we've already covered them all. So the rest of these 4, 5, and 6 actually are the same as they were the last time we met. The only other thing I wanted to highlight, and I think it's, Kate brought it up in the feedback that she shared, and we did discuss it a couple times when we met, was our ability to action these things. So I think, if we vote and agree that these are our goals, we sort of talked about what a potential next step might be in terms of how we could take this and turn it into, I keep using the word rubric, it doesn't have to be that formal, but something that sort of says, who's responsible for this, which subcommittees, who's actually tackling this, who's collaborating on things, and really sort of specifically highlight that in a granular way. And also, in Jenny's initial suggestion, she outlined some really awesome granular ways that we can get into these things. So I didn't want to lose sight of that as we were keeping this pretty high level. I think it's really important for us to think about those things. And think about, again, how we're holding ourselves accountable to these things. And the reason I bring that up now is we can work on that as a subcommittee, but I just want to make sure that the scope and the breadth of everything that is covered here feels like, if we do want to take it to that level, that this feels like something that is attainable. So I know we're all in agreement on how it's written here, but are we sort of all in agreement more broadly that this feels feasible? And what would that look like if we were going to try to take it to sort of an accountability, a more granular level of accountability?
Yeah. I like having follow through, so personally, I'd be in favor of having a way to measure our progress. And I guess our first check would be like in January, like midpoint of the year. I don't know if that's something the operations subcommittee has the appetite to meet back and pull something together. Cool. All right.
I think and specifically, or sort of concretely, how that might apply here is if we're thinking about taking the time to do that, because to spend the time to do it, that would probably take a fair bit of back and forth. That when we're looking at this, it feels like, yeah, we're willing to take it to that level, and this is all achievable for us. And not necessarily in like a check the box kind of way, it could be ongoing or whatever else, but just as sort of a final pass in looking at this, thinking, well, perhaps there's something here that I think Kate also brought up a valuable point conversationally around, if we get accepted into the MSBA program, does that impact any of the focus areas here in terms of capacity and ability to execute? So in the spirit of that, just kind of giving it one more once over to say, is there anything else that we would potentially say, maybe this isn't something that would be an area of focus for us?
Yeah. I think as they stand now, I think they're great. They're aspirational, but also, I think, achievable. And there's nothing that says we can't go back and modify them if we need to. Thoughts?
And I mean, to me, these seem more written, almost like we saw Tracy's presentation tonight, almost a little bit, I don't know what it would align with in her presentation, but almost like a longer term, higher visionary thing, where I know in the past, maybe 2-3 years ago when I started, the goals were like, communications, we're gonna like have a meet and greet once a month. from January to June to increase community engagement. They were much more like, this is what we're going to do this year, concrete, and it wasn't that high level, and I'm fine with this high level, I think it's good. But I almost wonder if we could keep these for a couple years.
Yeah.
2 or 3 years, and maybe tweak them a little, but instead of doing goals every year, we're doing like the action plan every year, based on these higher level. I don't know.
I like that.
Yeah, I had the same, like when we were drawing from the goals from last year, which we obviously did heavily, I feel like your suggestion is in the spirit of kind of what we've already done here, which has brought a lot of things along, updated things where the things that had already sort of happened a little bit. So I like that idea. That's great. Okay, that's it for me then.
You had started with, has this aligned to the subcommittees? I think they, for the most part, do. Maybe that's the first pass of subcommittees come back to say, okay, to your point, here's what this year would look like. And so maybe that's where we get some of the specifics. That could be a good next step for each of the individual subcommittees over the next meeting or two.
Yeah, and I can send a note out about that, and then maybe if the next time we meet as an operations subcommittee, we already have that feedback, so we're sort of bringing that information together and collating it, as opposed to us just trying to come up with it on our own.
That's great.
That's a great idea, yep.
I'm not sure how 4 and 5 would tie to subcommittees, but.
They don't all, but when we were,
Some of them do.
some of them do, and I think that's where, then that's where we need to figure out, well, so what would that actually look
Yeah,
like? If we're
right,
saying
maybe
this is
it's
valuable to us, then
community-wide
we
or-
need to,
Some,
yeah, meet around it. Mm-hmm.
Good.
All right, so are we at a place now, though, that people want to move forward and make a motion to approve them?
I move to support the Ipswich School Committee 2024-2025 goals as outlined.
Second.
All right, moved by Kate, second by Haley. Further discussion? I'll just add that I.
Amend that
okay.
to say pending final
Yeah.
revisions. You're still editing right now, right?
I did it, I did my,
Oh, you might?
I did.
Oh,
I
you're
was
good?
gonna say
Okay,
that.
well then, I would.
I got in there, I can't help it.
Well done. I think we got a first and second. All right, all in favor? Great, well done. Glad to.
We
have
remove
those approved.
draft from the top.
Yeah,
Yep.
excellent.
Sorry, one more question about that. So do we need to let Laura know and she'll post them?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want to, just so you make sure you have your
Sure,
edits
yep.
nice and clean, and then
Yep.
send it to her when you're ready. Thank you.
Okay.
Wonderful. Next up,
Superintendent's goals. So I built my goals off of yours so that there's alignment there. Not necessarily goal for goal, but certainly I did ask for feedback. I got feedback from a few folks on the committee. Incorporated those changes. For the most part, it's what was presented at the last meeting with different things. They're all measurable. And frankly, things that I've already been working on for a while. So if we want to walk through it. It's all been, I think we reviewed it at the last school committee meeting. So a lot of it just for the listening audience, centers around our facilities. In addition to, I don't have a specific goal around a new elementary school project, but more, I'm certainly going to have to be at the forefront of that. But what's in here is more around management and operations and, overseeing our facilities and ensuring a safe environment for our students, making sure that all the identified safety upgrades and repairs are done. With the changes in personnel, we had a lot of, I'll say, loose ends that we need to tighten up, so that my first goals are around that. And then the budget is a significant piece, understanding that we're seeing decreases in funding. We just negotiated all the bargaining unit contracts, so this budget season is going to be tight. And Tom and I have both made it clear to the staff, so that's going to be a challenge for us this year. I spoke earlier about the capital plan, so there's a goal in there about that. FEFI's policy review is the third goal. Just working with the subcommittee and the boots on the ground, as it were, to make sure that the policy ends up being what we need it to be in terms of the process and procedures, the forms, timelines, et cetera. The school, student achievement, social well-being, we've had a lot of discussions around, educational equity and opportunities, around field trips, around courses, things like that. So I have a goal associated with that. And then student safety awareness, looking at our, promoting our positive and safe school culture, working with our, local agencies to, make sure that we're consistently communicating with families, working with the fire department, the police department, area agencies to make sure that we're all on the same page in keeping our students and our staff safe. And then the target is to have, two events of some type to ensure that families are understanding, what we're doing to keep kids safe in the district and staff. And I think that's it. As I said, I incorporated the changes that I could that had been suggested. There we have it.
Just a reminder to everyone that one of the big jobs of our school committee is to evaluate the superintendent, and we are evaluating the superintendent based on these goals specifically. So we all have to be comfortable with the goals, as well as just keep them in mind. Once a month, look at them. We should be asking questions. So at the end of the year, we're not scrambling and trying to come up with an evaluation. Like, we should be checking in on these things, asking questions at superintendent reports, checking in on how things are going with this and
What I've tried to do
keeping
in my
track.
superintendent reports as well is that if there's an item that's specific to one of the goals,
Yeah.
like the capital plan, I make mention of that so folks know that it is one of my goals.
Yeah, so it's good, so it's sort of on all of us to keep track of, instead of just thinking back in May. I've learned it's better to sort of keep collecting information and checking in on these goals, our goals and your goals. Just helps the process go a little more smoothly in May. Good.
Yeah, thank you. I think
So
these are, since my time on the school committee, I find these, I like, these are my favorite yet, and I feel like they're, no, but because I feel like they're going to be really measurable, and I think what Kate said is important. Like, it's a big job to do the evaluation. I think it's going to help you and help us be able to do that the best we can. Thank you. All right. Is there a motion to approve these goals?
I
Vote on these, okay.
Did we vote on them? I think we did, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Go Haley, you got it.
I'm like, what was I going to say? What are we doing? Can I just say so moved?
All right, is there a motion to approve the superintendent goals as presented?
So moved.
All right, Haley, Sasha, further discussion, all in favor? Okay, unanimously passes. Great. We have all of our goals. Well done. All right, moving on to policy update.
Sorry, one question. Where do those then get posted, like in our general folder? Okay,
And on the
Yeah, they'll
district
get
website.
on the website as well, okay.
They'll probably get reformatted, but the information will be there. Laura does all that.
All right, for policy, going to try to do it in batches here. So first, there's a newly proposed policy, JICJ. We're not going to vote on this tonight. This is a concept of a policy that would be like an overarching district-wide cell phone policy or technology policy. Some of it was pulled from MASC, and then other parts were pulled from other districts who have policies on this. So if anybody has anything huge they want to mention now, you can. Otherwise, you can let me know. We can talk about it at the policy subcommittee, and then if people are in favor, we can vote on it at our next meeting. All right, moving down. Policy ACE, this one we reviewed kind of out of order. The food service director asked us to add literally 2 words, "and meals," which is important for the audit that she is undergoing this semester. Okay, next, KFR and KF. This was on last year's cycle, was held because Dr. Blake was working with the staff who does the facilities usage and space rentals. Want to make sure everything jived, so that has been okayed by Dr. Blake and the scheduler. Any questions on those? All right, it's only getting better. EBACA. This is our sustainability policy, so I was very excited to hear about all the things that were happening earlier today in the schools, and excited that we will potentially have this as an overarching district policy. So last we saw the draft, we reviewed it, we sent it back to the Waste Reduction Advisory Committee. I think you reviewed it with the administration again. The only changes were very minor grammatical changes, and we bolded one section just to further emphasize that while we want to be green and not waste paper, we certainly aren't expecting students to not use paper and write and do all the wonderful things that they do and need to do with paper. So I'm going to keep going, and then if there's any questions, let me know, but we can batch vote all of them except for the first one, if they're all good. All right.
I have a question on this one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. How does this, so if we vote this through tonight, how do we convey to the staff that this is happening? Because it requires, so I walked into school committee, I saw a staff member carrying large, or maybe it was yesterday, large containers of single-use water bottles. And I went, why are we doing that? But like, so it's changing some habits. And how does that get like rolled out to the staff awareness and?
What'll happen is, it'll go to the administrators have already seen this. So they're aware that it's in process, and so it'll go out to once it's approved, it'll go out to the administration, and they'll work with their individual faculties.
Staff meetings, okay.
And there's also, I don't have it up, we call it a task force.
Yeah, task force too.
So-
It'll have to be put together.
Yeah.
Just adding on to it, I know, at least from my experience, when staff advisors buy stuff, like for NHS or for Model UN, and they get reimbursed through like the school administrative person, is there any way that they could say like, try not to buy single use or buy plastic?
That's
Just because like we're doing, for Model UN, we went to Costco to get like the big containers of stuff. We didn't realize each one has a tiny little plastic bag for all the cookies. And we're like, oh man. And I don't know if there was like a message to say like, we'll reimburse you, but just as a note, like while you're filling out the form, like try not to have single-use plastic or.
I think
I don't know,
that's
just
a
like if
great
you're going to make a
Yeah,
committee of working
Maybe
people,
this task force can come up with some,
Yeah.
yeah.
because that's a great,
Just because I feel like that's definitely one of the
Yeah.
big middlemen between school products being bought and stuff like that.
Well, what I'm wondering also what the alternative would be. So saying don't buy single use, but obviously there's a reason they're buying them, right? So they want that provision made. So what's the alternative?
Or like try not to buy.
Suggestion, or, no, I'm talking about sort of separately
right.
from the suggestion that you're making. Like, what else, how else can they be supported in? If there's some event happening, what other messaging needs to happen on those notifications or
Right.
permission slips that say water will not be provided? Make sure you're bringing your water bottle, or what, you know, those
Yeah.
kinds of things. So
Yeah.
again, to your point, I think like having the task force kind of think through all the
or
different
maybe at
areas
faculty
of
meetings, like,
communication that would be.
they could have brainstorm, you know, I know at
Yeah.
Tiger Trot, when my kids were little, I think there was water, and then at some point it was like, no, bring your reusable water bottle, and they brought out an extra table, and everybody put their water bottles there, and then, so it's changing the culture, and I don't expect 100% compliance right away, but over time,
And another thing
becomes second
we're-
nature
yeah.
to know not to buy that stuff at Costco.
Another thing we're trying to do is like, again, like tomorrow from Audio One, we have like plates for people. Instead of buying a bunch of plates, National Honor Society was like, we have a bunch of leftover plastic silverware and plates, so you have to buy the stuff, you can reuse it, and then next time we can all get compostable silverware and plates and whatever have you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe just stocking some of that stuff in schools. I mean, that Costco, you can buy
Yeah.
500 of those China compostable plates and just having those.
Or
Around.
get some reusables down the
reusable, yeah.
line. Yeah, think big, but yeah.
If we did that, we'd have to, you know, where do you wash them and
Yeah, no, I know, it's complex for sure, but big picture. We're
Getting in the weeds,
yeah,
but just
but we're heading
implementation
in a
is
good
part of it.
direction. And I think, yes, there's going to be some things that are changed, but there's, like you said, there's so many things changing. And the fact that literally every administrator brought up sustainability, like, I think this is,
Yeah. And we have
all
come a
gonna merge
long,
together. It's gonna be
long way in changing the culture, I
Yeah.
think, in the district. So this is just like in the next step.
yeah. But we're also, a lot of this is stuff we're already doing or starting to do too, so it's good stuff. I'm excited. Like I said, there's been a lot of voices in this policy, so I'm excited that we're hopefully at
It'd
the
be
finish line here.
Great if the Waste Recycling Advisory Committee were to have a townwide policy and town hall and
Yeah,
rec department and all that stuff.
yeah, it's great. Okay, next, the following simply have pretty minor wording changes. EB, EBAB, EBB, EBC, EBCD, EBCE, EC, and ECA. Any questions on any of those? Are you looking right now, Kate?
I've looked at most of them. I have not looked at a couple, so I'm just peeking at them now. Yep.
All right, you good? Lastly, we are recommending deletion for the following two policies as they are COVID pandemic specific. EBC, EBC, the supplemental policy, there's two EBCs, this is the supplemental policy specific to COVID, and then EBCFA.
Sorry, say that again. EBC, which one?
EBC
Supplemental.
supplemental.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And EBCFA.
Okay.
Face coverings.
And hope we never have to go back there again.
We make a motion right now on that one.
So if and when anybody's ready, I think it will be, the motion can be knowing that it will be all the policies except for JICJ. So all of the policies we're reviewing, not the new policies. And however, if anybody wants to do it in a batch, you could perhaps move to approve the changes to the policy manual, so you don't have to list them out individually.
Can I ask a question about the emergency plans?
Yeah.
Just the regular EBC, emergency plans 2021? Dr. Blake, I know I had mentioned this to you sort of on the fly after one meeting, but I've thought about it a couple more times since I've been volunteering in the building, is just what kind of training potentially could be available for parents or volunteers or people who are not staff and not receiving that kind of training around whatever these procedures are. Specific, I know it wouldn't be possible for everybody, but like maybe some extension of some offering to parents who are particularly involved or in the buildings often. I just feel like I've been in the buildings enough times where I've been like, I would have no idea like what to do other than follow the advice of whoever the other adult is. And if that's it, then okay, fine. But I feel like when anybody is signing up to volunteer in the schools, that something should be communicated to them in terms of like, here's what you'd be responsible for doing. Like, I have been supervising a group of 10 children on my own for, once a week or whatever. So would I wait for someone to come in and tell me what to do? So not to get too in the weeds with it, but just, I'm just wondering what could be offered for parents to know, or not just parents, guardians, anybody who's not staff, who's in the building.
That's a great point.
There's a handout you could get, like,
When you do your
here are the
query.
emergency exits, here's where the AEDs are, here's the number for the police, or I don't know, a handout that people could.
An action.
I mean, maybe not everyone would get it, but like you said, like maybe the president of Fry's gets it, because they're probably there 3 days a week.
I mean, you're
and
not
the
allowed to
ACE
volunteer in the
volunteers.
buildings unless you do a query first, like so if you're doing a query, I feel like perhaps that's the point of entry where it's like you're taking this step, which is very intentional. You plan to be in the buildings, that's why you need that. So at that point in time, it would trigger, whether it's forms being handed out or whatever, something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like what you're saying. Like nothing too daunting, but enough that you feel prepared for whatever it is.
I don't know if at this point in time it could be incorporated here to a policy that we're currently trying to approve, but maybe at least thinking about how.
Yeah, I think Dr. Blake's got it
I got
on
it
the
all,
list.
yeah.
So,
Okay, all right.
if that
Makes a lot
feels,
of sense. It doesn't have to be in this emergency plan policy. This references something that I have to send to the state every other year in terms of what's the response time? Where are the AEDs in the building? How many people and who is trained in CPR in the building? Those kinds of things. But that's a great point.
Well, maybe, again, not that it belongs here necessarily, but are there other policies that are applicable to how volunteers are generally treated and what other, whatever, somewhere else where that might live eventually, where there's, again, some accountability around making sure that we're doing.
yeah, that's great. All right. Anybody want to make a motion?
Everyone look at me. Move to support the changes to the policy manual as presented with the exception of policy JICJ.
Second.
Moved by Kate, second by Jenny. Further discussion? All in favor? All right, it passes. Well done. Next, the discussion and vote on the AFSCME collective bargaining agreement for food services, which we began discussing at the executive session before this meeting.
Move to support the,
Maybe move to ratify.
move to ratify, I can't do this one. I don't have the.
AFSCME collective bargaining unit for food services.
Oh, it's all right there. All right, move to ratify the AFSCME collective bargaining agreement for food services as discussed in executive session.
Great.
Second.
Moved by Kate, second by Jenny. Further discussion? All in favor? All right.
Okay, we're done with negotiations.
Done with negotiations. Well done to all involved. All right, next, elementary school building project discussion. So keep this brief. I just want to thank the working group and Sasha again for putting together the tri-board presentation. I thought that went really well. I just emailed everybody, the finance committee sent their letter to the MSBA, so you all got a copy of that. And then you mentioned the Swampscott tour. We don't have that planned. Where are we at with getting that planned?
I've spoken to Pam Angelakis, who's the superintendent over in Swampscott, and she said whenever we want to try to go, just to let her know. It would, depending on whether we've gone on some visits. I think all the visits were actually during the school day.
Yeah.
So if we wanted to do that, I would have to keep it to a somewhat smaller group. I know that there's been some discussion about inviting some other folks on a tour, so if we were going to do that, I would want to do it after school hours. I don't want to be traipsing, a dozen people through their building, but, at least not when kids are in the building.
Yeah.
We're all quarried, know that other folks who would be going with us.
Yeah. I think one of the things we talked about is maybe doing, like, maybe the first tours ourselves and then go back with, and then bring people the next time. I don't know.
Yep.
Maybe just a,
Yeah, I think there's merit to obviously expanding that group, but without seeing it with kids in it, it's really hard to kind of envision how it kind of
Yeah.
flows and
Right.
works. And I think
Yep.
for us, at least for me, seeing them kind of live in action is the most important first step. Not to be the only step.
Right.
I also would be more opening to open it up to other people once we find a school that we really feel like great about, that might be similar to what we're looking for. I feel like some of all of the school visits were great and interesting, but I think some of them we were like, we wouldn't do this, or that seemed like it wouldn't fit for us. I mean, I'd rather find a school that we feel like, yes, this is really similar to what we want for whatever.
do our due diligence and then
Yeah.
welcome them to, oh, these are the ones that we really think would follow in what we're looking for. So
So
I'm thinking just us during the day.
if this is something that we want to try to do in December, you want me to pick a day and who's available is available? I'll talk with Pam and just see what their schedule looks like. Are there?
Friday,
is there-
December 6th.
I was just going to say Fridays are good, but I know that,
Fridays are better for me.
yeah.
Friday, December 6th?
That's like
Probably do that.
2 weeks from tomorrow.
I can ask her.
What
I'll
time?
I'll reach out. No, it's going to be up to them when, but,
Thank you.
All right.
okay?
I want to start
Yep.
with that.
Yep.
And then if not, then maybe get a couple dates from her, and then we can, if she gives us 2 or 3, then we can see what works best on our end. If she's
Okay.
got any flexibility. But yeah, the 6th
Okay.
sounds pretty good.
Yep.
Okay, that's
And
great.
then just one, if that's nothing else on that topic, just in terms of the MSBA, I did mention, I pulled Kristen and Senator Tarr out in the hallway and let them know that I had spoken to MSBA, because I don't think they were there when
No.
they weren't, because we didn't talk about it till much later in the meeting. So Representative Kasner and Senator Tarr, I pulled them both outside and let them know that I had gotten that phone call. So I think they may be following up as well.
Beautiful thing, okay.
Can I just make one other suggestion for the elementary building project consensus building? So I saw I don't know, an Instagram reel or something, where there were two gentlemen somewhere in the country that set out chairs and a sign that's, I don't know if anyone else saw this, that said, "Want to talk about it?" after the election. And they sat outside for 2 hours, and people just came and sat down and talked about it, and it ended up being, these two gentlemen reported, it ended up being really good conversations from people with different political views, and I don't know, it just resonated with me as something we could have a couple of us go to Zoomies or anywhere in town for an hour with a sign that says, "Want to talk about the elementary building project?" and see who shows up and start to just have conversations about it. So not until we get invited in, but, maybe this winter, I think that would be an interesting, just
Communications.
invitation to have people
We had
talk to us
talked
about it
about,
and hear people's concerns and things. Sorry. No, that's it.
we had talked about, as a next step as well around that, depending on if we were invited in. And I have been planning to kind of take a stab at this ahead of whether we get accepted or not. Looking at 3A, I think we've talked about this, Diana. Looking at 3A did a really nice job of putting together a really robust communication plan for how they wanted to kind of message. And so I think using that as a model for how we can really, again, get down in the weeds and determine examples like that of this is what we intend to do in terms of that community engagement piece. So I think probably that might be like a beginning of the year, new year kind of task for us, but coming up with what exactly does the community engagement piece and the communication piece, and how does that filter into the newsletter that already exists, the website, and potentially whatever new committee gets formed and what they would be doing. So I think where we landed on it and when we spoke about it was just, even if ultimately some of that doesn't fall to us when that step happens, being able to hand them something and say, take it or leave it, but here are some of our thoughts around what that could look like. So in the spirit of trying to build momentum, have something else that we're working on sort of while we're waiting, that was something we had talked about. So.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Just to stay ahead of it and have a plan and be leading the narrative a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
Should we be accepted next month? The first two things that we said we would put together is talking points for us, maybe select board, FinCom, and FAQ that we'd start to share.
Yeah.
So I think a big part of that eligibility period is town readiness, both financially and community support wise. So.
Yeah, I think we have to be ready to hit the ground running again to garner support for a vote. To get ahead of that.
Because even if we get invited in, it's not, we could still not make it to the step after that. I mean, you still, after eligibility, you still have to get invited into feasibility. I mean, there's other steps, so we need to sort of, once we're in, we need to really work hard to stay in and meet all those.
And then after all that, we could still fail the vote.
Yeah.
So
But we're not gonna.
we're not gonna. I'm just prepare for the worst, hope for the best.
Like
I
along
mean,
the way, so
Yeah.
let's stay on top of it.
nothing's guaranteed. I really like the Zoomies idea. I think that's great. One question I'll ask, because I have heard it just around. How much would I don't know if you researched this, how much would the budget for the buses go up, busing the kids that walk to Winthrop to the Doyon site?
A bus route is about 57,000, one bus for the year, is that right? But part of the feasibility study that was done in 2016, I think, said that on average, there are around 40 students that walk to school. So not a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know the numbers. I just thought.
Yeah. It's manageable, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think there'll be cost savings in other areas that,
Oh, for sure. I just
yeah.
heard that it's going to be more expensive to bus the kids, and I'm like, that's a good point. I don't know how much.
Yeah.
I think it's
Also,
good to think back
they
on
might have
those.
electric buses by that
Yeah,
time.
but also
Yeah.
the three, like, priorities that we talked about too. So there's like
Right.
so many things like that, like, you know, like, oh, how's this gonna, we have to work through that. But then if we're kind of keeping like, well, when we go back to those three priorities, like, okay, if that makes sense. Hopefully we can get everything underneath to start coming together and
I knew it
giving
wouldn't be
ourselves
like
like a lot
a
of time.
huge number just because, I mean, like, remembering my back time at Winthrop, like, a lot of people took the bus, most people took the bus anyway. Like, not everybody walked, but
But one other thing that we'll do as we look ahead to what's potentially coming is I'll share, and maybe we can talk about it in the next meeting, what does the next milestones and timeline look like for eligibility, feasibility? So we're all starting to get more fluent in what that would look like for us as well. So I'll do that for, was it just, yeah, December, or,
Yeah.
for December.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to wrap this up, I like all the ideas about communication, community outreach and stuff. I think we could almost have, if we get invited in, like, have a workshop just on that topic. So maybe we can see how that all plays out. But in the meantime, I do feel like we could start an FAQ, just a general one. And it's not like it needs to happen tomorrow, but I think if and when you're, like, who's on that one? The three of you meet again. Maybe that's something to just, even if it's like the top 5 questions that we anticipate, you know.
Yeah. I can take a stab at putting a draft together for the next time we meet.
And lots of other districts have
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are,
that we
yeah,
can-
so I'll look around.
Swampscott's, they have was it like yes to something? Theirs is very good.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Any other discussion on this topic? All right, moving along. New business. Great. Consent agenda. I move the Ipswich School Committee to approve the meeting minutes from November 7th, 2024. Is there a second? Okay, moved by me, second by Haley. All in favor?
I did not vote, because I wasn't there.
Sure. Abstained?
Abstain.
Okay, so the motion passes. They are approved. And is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Jenny, Haley, all in favor? Great. Adjourned at 10.